Trump's proposal tariffs on Mexico, Canada, and China could spark a trade war and impact your finances. Plus, a new window into Kamala Harris's campaign.
Oh my God. Okay. SpeedX is on when? I'd love that. I don't know how contenty it is, but Pod Save America interviewed the people responsible for Kamala Harris, and it's apparently maddening. Yeah.
Welcome to Pod Save America. I'm Dan Pfeiffer.
By the way, speaking of which, I will be fucking hosting Pod Save America tomorrow. So it's actually good to see this conversation take place. Yeah, I forgot to mention that. Yeah, a lot is going on, okay? A lot is going on in the HasanAbi universe, and I just often forget. Mark Warner wanted the band's theme for being too anti-Semitic. That's funny. Yeah, in person. Haas Save America tomorrow. I listened to it this morning, and they get progressively angrier.
We have a special show for you today. I am here in Washington, D.C., where I'm about to sit down.
The main show, chat.
With the leadership of the Harris-Walz campaign for their first interview about what happened in the election. Last week, Michael Tyler, who's the communications director for the campaign, called me. Thanks for that.
Yeah, the president was really ending. He knew
going into election day. And
it's Jen O'Malley Dillon,
consultant on all of it. Thank you for doing this. Very much appreciate you having this conversation with us here on Pod Save America. Just a level set, Jen, and I'll start with you. How did you feel going into election day? And at what point did you have a sense that things were beginning to break Trump's way? Was there a county result, something about the turnout? Like, was there a moment when you sort of understood that how it was going to end?
Well, the truth is that we really thought this was a very close race. We talked about the entire time we saw it as a margin of error race, almost the entire time the vice president was in the race. And we knew we had to have strong turnout on election day. We saw early vote really ending strong for us and saw, the types of voters we wanted to see turn out. But, we expected this to be close. We also expected that Florida was going to come in a bit redder. Virginia, we knew was tracking to being, that we were going to be ahead, but that we would be ahead by less than we were in 2020. So we were expecting to see that when we saw that. We also did anticipate that the night would go relatively long because some of these states would take longer to come in. But I think it was, really after polls closed, there was nothing that we saw throughout the day. There was nothing that we saw that told us there was overwhelming turnout or anything out of complete expectations on Trump's side. But it really took us into the hours of, polls closed.
Comments, an entire team talking over 90 minutes and not one good answer to a single question. This is actually worse than I thought. Actually, we did really, really good. It was like super hard. The long and short of it is none of these people should ever run a national campaign again. The Obama era is over. Let me save you 90 minutes. They learn nothing. It's like listening to corporate marketing department. They don't actually get customer/votes. There's such a huge disconnect. Pod Save America is in a unique intersection because they are directly tapped into Democratic establishment. They were a part of the Democratic establishment under the Obama era, and they have immediate access to the people that run these campaigns. But they are an independent media operation, which means they get comments, which means that their audience is not directly MSNBC watchers. Okay? Sort by new on your video. They're pouring honey on you. What do you mean? Which video? Oh, the older video that I did with Pod Save America from before the election.
Welcome to Pod Save.
Wait, I do want to see that actually. Is it here? Or did they post it somewhere else? This might be the official one. What is this? Do you remember the Garbage Day Internet Culture newsletter? Just remembered he said you should be the token leftist on Pod Save, lol. Mega popular Twitch streamer. Hasan Park is probably close to Rogan figure we have on our list. He's masculine, he's funny, he's tapped into the video culture, and he's aggressively left-wing, but he might be too political to capture the mainstream like Rogan has. More importantly, Piker's a streamer. Rogan has a podcast. You can download it on any app and listen to it on the way. Live streaming will never be as accessible. Maybe the Pod Save guy should hire him and let him yell at them for the next 4 years, lol. That's funny. Oh, here.
Winning those voters.
Dude, if you go back and watch this video, it is so different. Bro was spitting straight facts and no one in the Democratic Party was listening. Hasan is right. I'm a Democrat at 41. The campaign is making me sad. They keep moving right. Dude fucking nailed what happened this week. Yeah, they're pouring honey on the goat because I was right. Have Sam Hyde on to talk about what's happening. He's very erudite. I have my disagreements with Hasan, but he was right about the bro vote. Aged like fine wine. Hasan was right. Aged very well, Hasan. Sounds like Hasan was right. Trump won the Gen Z vote. They should have had this dude in their campaign. All his criticisms that were even before the election turned out to be the exact reasons why the Dems lost the election. Vindicated once again, permanently. Hasan is a literal terrorist sympathizer, had a Houthi terrorist on his show and was laughing with him, laughing at videos of hostages being taken, contributing to chat on October 7th podcast, saying they deserved it. Calling Israeli babies settler babies. He had a terrorist on his show and told them, we support you. Stop normalizing this. We need a Rogan, but entirely different except for aesthetic. Yeah. This is why, while it is incredibly self-serving for me to tell every liberal person that I'm the Joe Rogan of the left because they're desperately looking for one, and then they should give me billions of dollars so that I can be the Joe Rogan of the left, I still have to be honest and say that you can't podcast your way out of this issue. Would you appreciate the chance of doing something with Ezra Klein again? Yeah, I reached back out to Ezra. So Ezra's team and I had long conversations, which was right before Kamala Harris became the nominee. We had a long conversation with Ezra about the manosphere. Ironically enough, you know what my take is. You know what I've said. I've said this on the Pod Save America interview as well. This was even months prior to that. But then Kamala Harris got swapped for the candidate. So they dumped that episode that we were going to do together. But I was supposed to be on, no, I didn't ghost them. I was supposed to be on the New York Times pod with Ezra Klein. And I was very excited for it too. It's just that it didn't end up happening because obviously a lot more world-shaking events occurred. And, that's neither here nor there, but we might do something in the future. If you want to feel good about a pathetic loser that was presented as knowledgeable about, he's talking about getting owned. My God, how can you possibly debate on stream with this little background knowledge? Just the secondhand cringe is unbearable. Bad Empanada totally embarrassed Lonerbox here. Had to beg on his knees to be taught. Wait, what?
Just to withdraw support from Israel. To start actually denouncing it rather than just announcing it, every now and again. Oh, shit, is Israel killed a journalist? We are very concerned with the human rights, whatever, blah, 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 blah. That's nowhere near good enough. That's not, that's nothing, right? You can be like,
I'm just going to ask you the same
Israel did a
question when
bad
you're done,
thing
by
and
the
that's
way.
bad. Yeah, okay, then you're not listening at all. You're just going to ask, if you're just going to ask me the same question, you're not going to adapt it, you're not going to think about what I'm saying, then it's obvious.
Well, it's because
where
you
you're
don't have
coming
an
from.
it's because you don't have an answer.
What are you a
It's because you
You think,
know
like-
that getting a nuclear
just gave you an
power
answer.
to abolish itself is not going to happen.
Are you aware that's literally happened?
How?
The
When?
USSR.
Okay.
South Africa.
Right.
Like, did you think that was a gotcha?
I'm still asking you how you expect Israel to do it. How do you expect Israel to do it?
Like, what do you mean, how do you expect Israel to do it? Do you
Wait, in the same process that took place for South Africa. South Africa is the best method. Like, South Africa is the method. It's the movement. It's BDS. It's the same movement.
think they're gonna, like, Israel is gonna be the same as it is now and they're gonna go down bombing everyone?
I mean, given that they're kind of run by religious fanatics, probably. Yeah.
They're not actually run by quote unquote religious fanatics. A lot of them are secular fanatics.
Okay.
But South Africa was run by the same sorts of racial fanatics. International pressure brought down apartheid. Now a black government is in power. Why can't we do the same thing here?
Did South Africa have... I actually know this. You can tell me. I thought South Africa
South
ended
Africa
its
was a
nuclear
nuclear
program
state.
in 1989.
South Africa ended... No, yeah, they ended the nuclear program
Okay.
before allowing black people the right to vote for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
But the fact is, they didn't go down launching nukes as you were sort of implying they would there. So there's an
Also, what kind of argument is this to be like, yeah, they'll just nuke the world. We just have to keep letting Israel do apartheid shit. I mean, he's Googling it live, but like, regardless, checking the Wikipedia page to figure out when the South African nuclear disarmament occurred doesn't change the dynamic at all. It also doesn't make sense. Like, the argument doesn't make sense. Like, oh, what? Like, the Samson option exists, so I guess like we just have to let Israel do whatever the fuck it wants? Like, what do you mean? Wait, what's the obvious reason? What do you mean? Yeah, they didn't want black people to have, they didn't want a country that was no longer an apartheid that could possibly be run by black people to have nukes. The only countries that are run by, black and brown people that are allowed to have a nuclear program or nukes in general are either ones that have escaped the throes of Western colonial violence and become a hegemonic power like themselves, or a hegemonic power in their own right, China, or countries that are still directly controlled countries that are still directly controlled by the United States' State Department interests, like Pakistan. Pakistan actually is a really interesting example of this case because currently there is a tremendous amount of violence unfolding by the military that runs the country that is directly in the pocket of the United States of America. The only brown and black countries that are allowed to have nukes are only allowed to have nukes as long as they are good servants of U.S. empire. DPRK is a hegemonic power? Fuck yeah, baby. That's what I'm talking. Yes. Yes. That's what I'm talking about. Jucha. It's real. It's here. It's happening. They got motion. They're sending troops to Ukraine. It's so stupid to say this, but yes, countries that have developed their own nuclear programs outside of the orbit of influence of the Western superpowers. And think about how long that has taken. Think about how long that has taken to even get to that point. We still don't know if they fucking have nukes. Why doesn't Saudi Arabia have nukes? Don't worry. Don't worry. It's coming. I don't know if you guys heard. Just, watch this space, okay? That's all I'm going to say. I can't say what I've said about my criticisms of offering Saudi Arabia a nuclear program, because when I say those things, then Fox News clips it and acts like I'm in favor of Saudi Arabia getting nukes or whatever, but
South Africa was run by the same sorts of racial fanatics. International pressure brought down apartheid. Now a black government is in power. Why can't we do the same thing here?
Did South Africa have... I actually know this. You can tell me. I thought South Africa ended its nuclear program in 1989.
South Africa ended... No, yeah, they ended the nuclear program before allowing black people the right to vote for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
But the fact is, they didn't go down launching nukes as you were sort of implying they would there. So there's an example. There's examples of international pressure, right? South Africa went from like massive support across like the EU, the US held that until the end, but across like most of the most powerful countries in the world over the course of like 20, 30 years to essentially being bullied into giving up power.
So we probably have
why
to.
Can't
so
that
we
hap-
have
why
to.
can't that happen in
So
Israel?
we have to disarm Israel probably before getting.
I never saying black and brown, but which of the countries that you just listed are run by black people? What do you mean? South Africa is the country that is now run by black people that was, that disarmed its, that ended its nuclear program. Disarmed themselves.
We didn't disarm South Africa.
Well, they ended their.
They
weapon
agreed
program.
to end apartheid.
Okay.
They ended the weapon program during the end of the white supremacy. Just to withdraw.
This says North Korea does have nukes. I don't know about that. Everyone always says North Korea and Iran have nukes, but maybe. I still have the HasanAbi doctrine to guide the nation building meme picture. If you don't have nukes, get them. Refuse to give up the nukes if asked. Yeah. For as long as I've been around, everyone has always said that Iran is on the verge of getting a nuke. Iran is on the verge of getting a nuke. And North Korea seemingly has tested their nukes, but, that's give every global South nation a Metal Gear. Yeah. UK, Canada, France torpedoed the UN nuke watch group being allowed inside Iranian facilities recently. Anyway, I don't know why the fuck we're watching Lonerbox.
Closing for us to know for sure that
We
things were
should be
not
watching the Democratic Party.
tightening. They were tight, but they weren't tightening in the direction we needed them to be.
And is that just because Trump's turnout was so high?
Well, honestly, I think it's a little bit mixed. I mean, we saw certainly Trump turnout high in early vote. We really believe that to be mode shifting, and that's what I think it was. I think we also saw turnout was as expected in rural areas. Like, we didn't see anything that said, you know, like maybe we saw in 16 or even in 20 that he had more turnout than we had anticipated. And our analytics really was quite close, much closer than it had been in 20 and in 16. But I do think we saw some lighter turnout in some of the areas we had hoped, but difference of a point here or there, which obviously in a close race makes a huge difference. And then I think we saw a little bit of a drop in support in a few areas for us. So that ultimately, I think, is why we weren't able to close the gap. It wasn't so much that what we were seeing in the battlegrounds was out of expectation or that he had some hidden turnout we hadn't picked up on.
David, when you say it was a margin of error race, you need a high turnout, what did your polls tell you where the race was heading into Election Day?
Well, Dan, you and I talked prior to the election, and just to rewind, I think when Kamala Harris became the nominee, she was behind. We kind of, climbed back.
Yeah, this is the craziest part of this is that the new information, where the fuck is it, that shows that the Kamala Harris internal numbers also never showed that she was beating Trump. It is a bit of a shocker, for the record. This is actually a shocker. Harris campaign aide saying that internal polling never had her ahead of Trump is a shocker. Why is it a shocker? Because they didn't even change their campaign strategy. And they acted like they were fucking throwing up LeBron numbers, dude. It's crazy. Like, they were throwing on purpose. Like, what the fuck was going on? Yeah, I saw the list. Funny list, but good mention for you, G. I saw. It's a great list. It's not a funny list. I like the list, the complex list. I'm number 5. I'm very honored to be amongst, some of the best in the game. Yeah. Kamala Harris's internal numbers showing that they were doomed from the jump is fucking nuts. It's nuts, especially when they were like, yeah, shit's looking bad. And then we just got to keep moving right.
And even post-debate, we still had ourselves down, in the battleground states, but very close. And so I think by the end, it was a jump ball race. And I think we needed some things to break our way. Maybe Trump's election day turnout would underperform. Our election day turnout would, either be at level or overperform. And, we'd win more of the people who decided in the last 3 or 4 days. I think our data and the New York Times data and other public data suggested we did have some progress with undecideds at late October. So it was a dead heat race. But, at the end of the day, the political atmosphere was pretty brutal. And that's not an excuse. You had right track, wrong track, I think 28-72, about 70% of the country saying they were angry and dissatisfied.
Yeah, and we saw that. We saw that, just like I constantly mentioned. Remember, this was a thing that I mentioned all the fucking time. And the campaign was like, we got to move directly move towards Joe Biden. But then only try to outflank him by going more to the right. We saw and did nothing. We saw and sometimes even did worse than nothing. We saw that, and we did the worst possible thing you could do.
You had Trump's approval rating on his first term, frustratingly high, 48 to 51, depending on the state. Obviously, the incumbent president's approval rating around 38 to 41, depending on the state. And, I think the economy and inflation still driving a lot of votes. So I think given that we had a challenging political environment, the fact that we got the race to dead heat was positive, but boy, it was slow moving. And I think we were focused on 7 states. That's our windshield into the world, the battleground states. But, what we saw on election day was, New Jersey and California and Connecticut and New York, massive shifts. So I think where Kamala Harris campaigned, we were able to keep the tide down a little bit, but it ended up being a pretty strong, tailwind for Donald Trump. And I think it's worth reminding everybody, we saw in 22, even though that was a pretty decent Democratic year, we saw these shifts. We saw them in 20, we saw them in 16. Trump specifically, but Republicans generally.
Please, man, be honest. The biggest mistake Harris made was saying the only difference between Biden, she would have 1 Republican in the government. She should have said 2. You're right. You're right. Americans obviously were like, actually, how about all Republican members of the cabinet? That's what they voted for. And that's the only method to win. That's the only way that we can win. We have to become Republicans. We just have to be Republican. We are the real Republican Party. Please vote for us. Why is nobody voting for us? Yes.
Improving their vote share amongst non-college voters, particularly non-college voters of color. And this was a surprising race because Kamala Harris actually did, I think, better with senior voters than I think a lot of people would have thought. So margin of error race where we inherited a deficit, we got it to even, but the thing never moved. So to Jen's point, I think we were, you know, we were hopeful. I don't know how optimistic we were, but we thought, okay, this is tied. And if a couple of things break our way, and listen, I'm naive in this way. I just thought at the end of the day, particularly because Trump did not close well, I thought, and I thought Kamala Harris closed well. Trump was reminding people some of the things they don't like about him, that might give us what we needed. But at the end of the day, I think the political atmosphere, the desire for change, all those fundamentals that you've spent a lot of time talking about really presented huge challenges for us. So, you know, we got there, but we didn't get the breaks we needed on election day.
How deep was the hole that she had to climb out of?
Well, Jen, I mean, I think, listen, there was the Biden-Trump 1.0, which is obviously pretty catastrophic in terms of where the race stood. When we got in, my recollection is some of that snapped back, but, you know, we were behind. I mean, I think it surprised people because there was these public polls that came out in late September, early October, showing us with leads that we never saw. You know, I mean, it was just basically a race that in the battlegrounds was 46-47, 47-48. So that's not where we started. We started behind. She was able to climb out. I think even after the debate, we might have gained, 0.51. It wasn't a race that moved a lot. And so I think when you think about our own internal analytics, you know, if you have Wisconsin at 47-47, or Pennsylvania 48-47 Trump, let's say, which I think is where we had it at the end, you know, you've got to have undecided to break your way more than your opponents, and you've got to get a little benefit from turnout, which we weren't able to do.
Obviously, the defining event of this race was the candidate switch, and every decision you guys had to make, everything you had to do was defined also by the compressed calendar in which you were operating in. Quentin, you were there when that switch happened. How were you able, there was a 1 month period between the debate and when the president actually dropped out. Obviously, it seemed like dropping out could be a possibility. Were you able to do any thinking or planning in that 1 month period about what a race with the vice president would look like? Or did you have to sort of start cold on that first day, the moment you got the call or the statement went out?
I mean, we started cold. There was no planning involved in any other candidates. I mean, we were honestly in crisis management mode of keeping President Biden in the race, convincing, Democratic allies that he could still do this. And one of the things was trying to keep the president out on the road as much. We were still doing everything we could from a campaign, and he made the decision that he did not want to continue on. And he pulled some of the senior leadership together and said that he was going to be with the vice president. It also wasn't anything that our team took for granted to just say, okay, she is the nominee. We knew that there was still a situation where we had to shore up delegates, and that's where we started from. And then after that point, that is when we began to say, okay, how can we define her? Also, Trump's favorabilities numbers were creeping up, as Pluff said, and we had to do something about that as well. And so it was a lot of walking and chewing gum at the same time, but there really was no sort of contingency planning to turn the race over to her right after that debate or at any point until President Biden definitively said he wasn't going to continue on.
If I ran this campaign, I'd never show my face again. Why are they admitting this? Because they're going to get rehired. That's why. What do you mean? They've literally, these people, maybe not so much, but people who are attached to the campaign as consultants have been non-stop going on CNN and all of these other outlets to talk about how it was trans people that cost them the victory over and over again. They only get to be shameless. They only get to be shameless because people let them. Okay? That's it. The Democratic Party consistently entertains and also elevates losers, okay? Because their goals overall is to maintain the status quo. That's it. God forbid, God fucking forbid that they disrupt the status quo. Did you just say it's literally people who are running the campaign saying that? These are the people who are responsible for the campaign, yes, but other consultants that have also been that have played a formative role in the campaign have been endlessly going on CNN and defending their positions by saying we did everything right and the voters were either too stupid to recognize it, which is, something that is if you say that out loud as a campaign person, like consultant, you should be fired permanently. Or saying that it's because we were just like too pro-trans or too Latinx adjacent. There is a real crisis of talent in, I think, the Democratic Party, and it is it's kind of like police. There's a culture of it is a culture of hiring and elevating losers over and over again.
Stephanie, I think what probably surprised a lot of people in politics was the vice president was a largely unknown quantity to much of the electorate. Mm-hmm. So you guys, under a very short time frame, had to do two things. As Quinn said, you had to teach people about her and also make a case against Donald Trump, who had just come off, he was at an all-time high, come off the assassination attempt, the debate against the president. In terms of messaging, how did you think about the balance between the two?
Well, the first thing we had to do is put on a convention, and we had about 3 weeks to flip a convention that was being built around Joe Biden. So
Which is why we didn't flip the. By the way, these are, ironically enough, every single person here, I'm pretty sure, is also or was also a Joe Biden campaign strategist. So that's the other part of this as well. Kamala Harris did not have her own staffers. She has had a lot of turnover on her end historically, even when she was vice president. So, with the exception of Pluff, most of the people here are, they were already on the Joe Biden campaign. So if you're wondering why, they have this perspective, and if you're wondering why they might not even like shit on Joe Biden too much, that's the reason. Because that's the one like acceptable liberal take that I'm on board with, which is like if you blame Joe Biden, because there is truth to that. Okay. There is at least truth to blaming Joe Biden because he does share a significant amount of the blame, a significant amount of the responsibility, not dropping out, not gearing up for being a transitional candidate and propping up a VP pick that could have potentially won. Even Kamala Harris, if you wanted to do that with her, like he didn't do that at all. And not dropping out until the very last moment, until he was forced to do so. Like these are all massively consequential decisions that absolutely played a formative role in Kamala Harris's defeat. But the former Biden staffers are not going to fucking say that either, especially because they worked on that campaign too.
We were able to flip it, to fit this very new character of a different generation, different experience, different background. And looking at the data at the time, which Jen and Pluff and Quentin have all talked about, she had a huge deficit in favorability because either people didn't know about her or what they did know about her was based off of negative media. So our first priority was to define her in that convention, fill in her bio. As part of that, we already knew how to do the negative on Trump, and we knew that there was a lot of Trumpnesia out there. People didn't remember the 4 years of the Trump administration that badly because they had been through hell. They had been through COVID, both under his watch and under President Biden's. I'm putting aside a lot of the details of who's at fault and what Biden did to dig us out and all of that. And then they had to deal with inflation. So they had been through hell. So looking back, you remember a previous time much more fondly because you've now think that you've gone through the worst. So we had to remind people what life was like. That was our second imperative. And then the third imperative as part of the convention and leading into the remaining days of the campaign is what's that choice? What are the two very different visions between Trump and Kamala Harris? So the convention, it demonstrated a lot of enthusiasm for Kamala Harris, a lot of freshness, future-oriented, bringing a variety of coalitions together. We had independents, Republicans, Democrats, business leaders, sports figures.
What about the progressives? Independents, Republicans, Democrats, business leaders.
Everybody coming together around.
Oh, no mention of the progressives. Okay, that's, maybe that's a problem. That like this does not factor into your equation at all. Perhaps that could be one of the major reasons why y'all fucked up.
A new way forward and finally turning the page. So, through the rest of that campaign, our next thing was the debate just a few weeks later. And
I think it's really embarrassing to say we were trying to build a big tent with Republicans when Kamala Harris lost a greater share of Republican votes than Joe Biden did. With an objectively less, Joe Biden had an objectively more progressive campaign. Philly D calls out Hasan. What did he say?
Oh, wait. Speaking of Hasan, did you see this motherfucker? You see this fucking photo he posted on Twitter? I was like, dude.
Chill, bro. First of all, he posts photos too. You can't be calling me out, Phil. You're trying to fill people in. I see the thirst traps you post before going live, okay? He's doing the HasanAbi method.
My man.
He's doing the HasanAbi method. Oh, that's funny. Bro, that photo was so insane. I don't get it. What's insane about it? What is insane about it? Ray also called you out shameful.
What the fuck?
What is it?
Guys, I just opened up Twitter and I just see Hasan cock.
Okay, it's you guys' fault. That's not the prominent fixture of this photo. That's not supposed to be the main emphasis.
What the fuck?
That's just simply a part of the photo. It made me pregnant. It's not like it's not supposed to be the most important part of the photo at all. It's supposed to not even be a part of the photo. It's just an afterthought. There's no other way to show my fucking legs. What do you want me to do? The photo is 30,000 likes in an hour. That is 2 hours. That's insane. Look, I almost have the indent. You can see. I saw the pig and had to have a cigarette. I had a girlfriend until you posted that. We just got a mortgage together. What do I do? You're leaning back so your schmeat can be more prominent. No, I'm flexing. You're on TV in my parents' house. You're flexing your cock and balls. Okay. This is why so many fucking incels hate me, dude. The shit that you guys are saying in here. But that gyno though, yeah, I got a little bit of dude, I don't know, man. I feel like my titties are tittied up. You're my litmus test for if I've gone full lesbian as of today. Def not. Chat, we outmeated Donovan Mitchell. What? My Hatsune Miku poster going down and you're replacing her? That's okay. Everybody calm down. Okay. All right. We're done with this. You have to see this reaction. No, I don't want to hit translate post on this. I'm clicking away. We're done. We're done. We're done. We're done. We're done. I think everyone's making a bigger deal out of this than they should have been. Donovan Mitchell did a Skims photo shoot and people started meat watching. We're done with this. We're done with this. What is this? Context? Oh, is the Donovan Mitchell meat context? I mean, okay, that's not, I didn't out meat him, dude. Are you crazy? He's got meat for fucking days. That's wild. You like the Schmeat talk and you okay with it? You should watch this TikTok. He has your take on Kamala.
Politicians want to win over young people. I suggest they actually talk to one because they really think they can still get up there and pull that. I love small businesses. If you have a small business, I'll fight for you. Motherfucker, we all eat cup noodles. You really think any of us have a small business? We have managers that we hate. That's what we have. If anyone my age tried to be like, yeah, I actually just started my own business. I'm now the CEO of my own company, and I'm my own boss. That motherfucker's in an MLM. Ignore everything he says. He saves up.
Yeah. Shadow. Okay, guys. Do you want me to go back to the Democratic Party's failures in this last election cycle, or do you want to keep talking about Schmeat talk? Chad needs to chill the fuck out. You got brought up on an OTV podcast earlier.
Yeah. I was talking about that today on stream, how like when I'm scrolling on my TikTok For You page, I get a lot of girls that are like thirsting over Hasan. I'm like, it's just fucking crazy because he's just like in our circle. Yeah. And I get to see him and like I talk to him and he's always like, hey, you know, and I'm like, yeah, this is the guy that you guys are tripping over this man.
Dude, the worst part about knowing Hasan is when I liked Fear Ann TikTok because I went on their podcast. And all of a sudden, I got Hasan armpit fan cams on my TikTok, and I was like, "Holy shit!" I was like, "No!" You hold down the button, and you're like, "I do not like this," or like, "Not interested in this post." I was like doing it to all of those, and they wouldn't go.
Okay, that's hater behavior. You should be liking those. Like that's crazy. Okay, my friends are my worst haters. Honestly, that's crazy to me because it's like, why would you hate on that? Why it's just like you should like it and support it. Like I don't understand.
Go away.
So you've got Jenna Ortega, Sydney Sweeney, Hasan Armpits.
Yeah.
Like that's your
all of a sudden Vinny Hacker shirtless TikToks are coming out.
Okay, hold up. Let's see. Did she say she doesn't like the Vinny Hacker shirtless ones?
Bro, I have met these people in person.
Yes.
It's so weird that this is like on my time. I need to get it off. So I'm like super fast scrolling, and every time I see
oh, so she didn't hit the do not like on Vinny Hacker ones. To be fair, I get it. I understand. Heavier adults that push the plates. Not gonna lie, I tried to follow your political content on TikTok and it instantly became a Hasan thirst trap For You page. Yeah, I try to repost a lot of the HasanAbi Clips Industrial Complex on TikTok that actually posts my takes from this stream. And there's fantastic accounts on there. The problem is they absolutely get like they get no motion in comparison to the thirst trap TikToks. Like the thirst talk TikToks get like hundreds of thousands of likes, but the political take stuff unfortunately get a fraction of that.
Are you still just looking at it? So the core of the company is really solving those two things. How do we build something that's greater, which is usually give people what they want by allowing them to discover, but then at the same time solve the monetization aspect. And so in podcast, you know, the whole industry has evolved quite a lot.
I feel like I need to stop eating
from,
pizza.
Sort of download to streaming.
I need to
from
stop
all these
eating
measurement
pizza.
tools,
Bro, you're
all of these
skinny as hell, bro. It's fine. You earned the pizza. What the fuck?
And obviously in video, it's totally different type of stacks. And we see that being a huge barrier.
When this dude hits me up, when I steal the HasanAbi or the Hasan method of thirst trapping to get people to come to a stream.
Put the pizza down and get your meat out.
This man will hit me up in DM. He's like, "You killing it, champ," and this motherfucker just comes out like this. Yeah, Hasan needs to be banned off of Twitch. Not for anything he said.
No, Philip DeFranco is now on the ban Hasan train. Oh, we're cooked. We've lost another pillar. New hater unlocked.
That photo.
Oh no. We've lost the libs. He banned Hasan train, but he's valid. They say Icarus burned brightly before he went out, King. All right, let's continue.
It was boom, 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 all the way through probably early October after the Walls debate, that we had to move through these things so quickly. Once we got through all of that, then the race started to gel. And, to the extent people were open to remembering what life was like under Trump, we were trying to fill that in. To the extent people had questions about Kamala Harris, we were still trying to fill that in. So in 107 days, what typically takes us a year and a half, 2 years in a presidential campaign, we were defining someone who was wholly undefined from the start, trying to remind people about the opponent and what life was like underneath him, and also take into account what the political environment was and the realities that we had to deal with, which, she was the incumbent, but she really wasn't the incumbent. People didn't know that much about her. The economy was still slightly getting better, but we couldn't really take credit for it.
I like that the people tasked with defining a candidate that was not previously defined are talking about how they failed to do that, but in a way where they're not taking responsibility whatsoever and simply just going, yeah, we couldn't market this product. And it's like, dude, your job is to market the product. You're talking about your incompetence in marketing the product while saying, well, this is unmarketable. She's still saying the economy was rebounding. This is a thing that I kept repeating. The economy in 2016 was quote unquote fine, okay? And it seemingly was not fine for a lot of people, so much so that they wanted to take a sledgehammer to these institutions. Clearly, they did not consider it to be fine back in 2016 when they voted for Trump the first time. It's like especially not fine now.
We were in a bit of a crossroads trying to figure out what that October messaging and closing messaging would look like.
Pluff, there was a sort of a debate outside of your campaign that the primary and most important thing to do was to educate voters about Kamala Harris and that voters sort of knew all they needed to know about Trump. I take it you guys disagreed with that analysis and you felt a need to at least knock his numbers down a little bit. Is that right?
Of course. I mean, that is nonsense. So first of all, back to where the question you were talking to Stephanie about. Kamala Harris started this race, if I recall, with favorable 33 to 35. She ended it at 48. She actually ended the election with a higher approval rating than Donald Trump. I'm not sure someone's won the presidency with a lower approval rating. So I think as people got to know her, they liked her. I think her approval rating now post-election is north of 50. That was really hard work. And I will say that, think about if Kamala Harris had come out of a process that was traditional, running in and winning a primary. So maybe become the nominee March or April. You spend a month, 6 weeks on your biography. You keep coming back to it. You define the Trump first term. You raise the stakes of what a Trump second term would be like. You have like a month just to run paid advertising on things like housing.
Bro, they didn't even do that well enough. Like they didn't even remind people of like how shitty it was when Trump was president. They didn't even do that well enough. They did a horrible job at that. Oh my God, dude, they're going to run Kamala again. I swear to God. I swear to God, bro. It is so, whew.
in your tax cut. So this is where there was a price to be paid for the short campaign. And you can't even say 107 days, because to Quentin's point, some of that was spent shoring up the Democratic nomination. Then you really have to have said everything you want to say by the time people start voting early. So we had a little more than 2 months to do bio, contrast on the economy, on healthcare, raising the stakes of Trump. So yes, when you have a race where you've got the current incumbent president with approval ratings of, let's say, 38 to 40, never in history have we had this before, at least since, I guess, Grover Cleveland. So once you have a former president running where 48 to 51% of the people approve of his first term, and people are dissatisfied with the direction of the country, you have to raise the stakes of what a second term would be like. So I think for us, we spent much more time trying to raise the stakes of the second term than re-arbitrating the first, because voters just weren't open to that. So that's why pointing out, his tariff and what that would mean in terms of a huge sales tax for the American people.
That's Chatter. I don't know how to respond to you, Chatter. That's so funny. Yeah, maybe they've missed a few social cues this election.
The fact that he's more unhinged, he wants unchecked power. Project 2025 ended up being about as popular as the Ebola virus.
Question.
So we did a lot of good work there. And now, of course, the son of a bitch lied about it, and he's hiring everybody who authored it. Project 2025 is going to be the Trump administration agenda, as we pointed out. So we had to do that. So if we had just run a race solely on Kamala Harris positives, though we did a lot of that on what Kamala Harris wants to do on the economy, we did a lot of that. It's worth reminding your listeners who live in California, New York, or Alabama or Florida, you're not experiencing the presidential race as it's experienced in Pennsylvania, Michigan, North Carolina. We spent a lot of time, she spent a lot of time driving a core economic message. But in our view, that was not enough. When you've got someone whose first term was judged favorably enough by enough people to give him the election, and people are dissatisfied about where you are now, and you're part of that administration, you have to basically raise the stakes. And for us, it was on the economy. It was on the fact that all the people who stood in his way last time were warning us about him. It was about Project 2025. It was about abortion. And, I think we did a good job of that based on our data, but we had to stay on that. So I think that is an incredibly faulty reading, that what we should have done is just lift up Kamala Harris. We clearly did. Her favorability rating increased by, I believe, 15 points. If you look at who do you trust more to look out for people like your family, who do you think is going to fight for the middle class? Huge progress for Kamala Harris. Even on crime and immigration, we were able to make double-digit progress. So we were very focused on lifting her up. But to win a race like this, given the political atmospherics, which were quite challenging, we had to raise the risk of a Trump second term.
Jen, you guys are obviously operating in a very, very tough political environment. Incumbent president, very low approval ratings, as Paul mentioned, wrong track, right track, approval of the economy, all very challenging. Also, in at least the public polling, huge desire for change, right? Frustration with the status quo. Not just that's here in the United States, but we've seen that across the world since COVID. Challenging place to be if you were the vice president to the unpopular incumbent president. Felt like much of the convention, as Stephanie mentioned, was trying to make her a change candidate, talk about turning the page. So can you talk a little about how you tried to do that and whether you think she could or should have done more to distance herself from President Biden? Something that I think, as evidenced by the answer on The View, she was at least personally uncomfortable with.
Well, yeah, look, first of all, I think people, when they vote for president, want to vote about the future. And they saw in the vice president someone they didn't know a lot about a background. So, who she was, what she stood for, what she did as vice president. So in every step of what we were trying to do, we had to tell a pretty robust story in one ad or one policy rollout or one event that you don't often have to do because of the time we were in. But I do think.
Yeah, and what they arrived at was, I'm a small business. My mother is a small business. I love small businesses because my mother was one. Also, I prosecuted transnational gangs. Joy. I have joy when I think about transnational gangs. My favorite thing to think about is transnational gangs and the joy I have prosecuting them. And also the joy I have when I think about small businesses in the opportunity economy. How could this have failed, guys? I don't understand. This was the greatest campaign message of all time. Yeah, I love the border wall. The border wall is great, actually. I've decided the border wall is great after calling everyone that defended the border wall a racist for 8 fucking years. I also want to drill. Drill, baby, drill. Every concession that the Democrats made read as just simple hypocrisy. That's it. Every concession that they made read as simple hypocrisy, that the Democrats were trying to just say, oops, we got caught lying. We actually like these things. These things were good. We were just lying when we said they're bad. So why the fuck does that matter?
I think that we really focused from the get-go on how she was different than everyone else, different than Joe Biden, different than Donald Trump. And at the end of the day, the choice was her versus Donald Trump. And at the same time, she was very clear that she was a new generation of leadership, but it wasn't just like a statement. It was, here's what I need to focus on. Her first policy announcements were economic, talking about housing, talking about lowering costs, understanding that people really didn't feel like things were progressing in the way that they wanted to, a la the right track, wrong track data, but how she brought her own point of view to thinking about housing, sandwich generation. That was probably her biggest applause line, one of the best testing things that we did. That wasn't a poll tested, let's work on this poll, this data to tell us this is the right issue we should go talk about. That was about her life and also understanding what people in the country were really needing.
Oh. Bro, these people are, I think these people just are bad. That's it. And it's not like the Republicans are good or have better people. They're just less bad, I guess. And only because like Trump reads as more authentic than Kamala Harris does. And these people will never understand why. Saying Kamala Harris is like, trying to make it seem like Kamala Harris was like a unique orator. Oh, she came up with a sandwich generation all on her own because that's her real experience. Like, that's dog shit, dude. She had to make up for her lack of charisma with good policies, and they're not going to talk about the policies anyway. So why are you acting like a thing that people genuinely did not see as though it was the reality? Like people saw her as a political people saw her as this like charismatic political figure that was talking about her genuine experiences in a way that translated to broader acceptance.
So I think that in a 107-day race, it is very difficult to do all the things you would normally do in a year and a half, 2 years. But I think wherever we had an opportunity, the vice president did put her own stamp on this and did it in a deeper way than I think probably we got the kind of full breadth of coverage on it. Of course, when you have an administration that a lot of progress has been made and you're part of that progress, it's complicated when you're asked questions.
For so many people that talk about how closely they're tracking the data or how closely they're tracking, even messages. I wonder if they were closely tracking the messages around Gaza. Was that a consideration at all? I doubt it.
Questions in certain ways, but at the end of the day, I think she really, every time she turned, talked to a voter, every time she was out on the stump, she really leaned into her own vision. But the headwinds were tough. I will also, though, add, of course, we lost. So I'm not here to say that that didn't happen. We would much rather not have that happen. But where she campaigned, we did way better than the rest of the country. And Donald Trump did worse, to the point that you were just talking about with Pluff. The idea that people have just a well-constructed, already baked-in idea about Trump and they don't need to learn anymore is just complete fallacy. I mean, his numbers are stronger today than they have ever been. Yeah. And that was critical for us. And we also believe this race was not just about Kamala Harris. It was Kamala Harris versus Donald Trump. And we had to set that choice and that frame up. And I think that we were able to, anywhere we campaigned in all 7 of these states, where Donald Trump, by the way, campaigned too. He did worse and we did better. And we did make real progress against these national headwinds. If in every other state but the battlegrounds, there was a negative 8-point shift to the right. In the battlegrounds, there was only 3. So we needed it to be better than that. And perhaps if we had more time, we could have done that. But I think that's fundamental, that when people learned more about her, understood what she stood for, where she came from, and what her vision was, they responded well to that. And they responded in a favorable way, especially in contrast.
Wow. We lost by less in states where we campaigned, as opposed to losing even harder in states where we didn't campaign. Brilliant. Yeah, I mean, listen, we suck shit and we lost across the board and we're dog shit. We're awful. It's like, you see, we could have lost by 20, but we simply lost by 14. And that in and of itself is a victory. Got it.
To, a point of view that Donald Trump will be worse. And I think that's playing out right now.
And Dan, on the Biden question, we of course got that everywhere we went. And we knew what the data was. We knew we had to show her as her own person and point to the future and not try to rehash the past. But she also felt that she was part of the administration. And unless we said something like, well, I would have handled the border completely differently, we were never going to satisfy anybody. So we did talk about things like she's a different generation. Most of her career is from outside of Washington, not inside Washington. So she knows a lot of the best ideas are from across the country. Her career has been about reaching across the aisle, finding common sense ways to get things done. It's not been based in ideological politics. All of these things, we were trying to tell a story.
Oh my God, they're so stupid, dude. Oh my God. Oh my God. Wow. This is worse than I thought. I sometimes also fall into the same trappings that I urge chatters not to fall into and assume that like a person in a position of power is at least knowledgeable or somewhat more knowledgeable than myself or more intelligent. I tell you guys all the time, like, you know, some of these congresspersons are dumb as fuck, right? But we tend to forget how fucking stupid the average person in DC might be because they're, you know, wearing suits and they're speaking in a professional cadence and yet I'm in awe at how resilient the stupidity is overall. She said, "Oh, look at all of our successes of showcasing Kamala Harris as like outside of the DC bubble." How did she present that? By fucking saying common sense solutions across the country. I mean, this is so unimaginably arrogant and so silly and so wrong. Wow. Americans love common sense solutions, sir. You don't understand. That's why she said it. It's like, yeah, they love bipartisanship. That's what we need to do. That's why that's why the candidate that has never actually even remotely broached bipartisanship defeated our bipartisanship candidate, because Americans love bipartisanship.
And give the impression that she was different without pointing to a specific issue.
Can I ask this, why not a specific issue? Is it something she was unwilling to do? You worried even feel disingenuous, or?
Because she felt like she was part of the administration. So why should she look back and cherry pick some things that she would have done differently when she was part of it? And she had tremendous loyalty to President Biden. And, you know, if we had said, just imagine this. You've been on plenty of campaigns. Imagine if we said, well, we would have taken this approach on the border. Imagine the round of stories coming out after that of people saying, well,
yeah, good. Yeah, that would have been good. That would have separated you in the eyes of the electorate from the unpopular guy that you were replacing. That's called good media, not bad media. Ooh, drama. Why is Kamala Harris separating herself from Joe Biden? That's a story that benefits the campaign. Wow. That kind of publicity would be good, you know?
Well, she never said that in a meeting, or what meeting when she said this, or I remember when she did that. And it wasn't going to give us what we needed because it wouldn't be a clean break. It would be, you know, days upon days in a limited time window that we had.
You know what's really fucking stupid about this? They did not in any type of way feel uncomfortable with Kamala Harris distancing herself from her very public declarations from 4 fucking years ago. But God forbid she distanced herself from the guy that made the situation so dire that you had to substitute yourself in his place to run for president. They have no issue distancing from progressive policies that she had, quote unquote, fake championed, her own fucking platform that made her look like a buffoon, a hypocritical phony to those who even pay close enough attention. The only ways in which she was able to distance herself successfully from Biden was when she was hugging and kissing and fucking and sucking Liz Cheney and Dick Cheney. Ridiculous.
Of dealing of who, what, when, where. So the best we could do, and the most that she felt comfortable with, was saying, like, look, vice presidents never break with their presidents. The only time in recent memory is when Pence broke with Trump after Trump stormed the Capitol. So Biden's
they call that the murder exemption. If the president tries to murder you, can break. Yes.
If you are, ripping up the Constitution, trying to overturn an election, people die, then you could break with your president. But absent that, vice presidents stick by their presidents. And she wasn't willing to, change that precedent for whoever the future president-vice presidential partnership would be, because it would mean a whole, different set of...
Yeah, we must not break norms. Excuse me. I love the rules and the norms. I am the norms abider. I am the rules and norms respecter. We must not break them. Okay, then why the fuck is Kamala Harris running for president? Why? Why is Kamala Harris president then? Running for president. She didn't become president. That was a violation of the norms. The fuck?
Problems, as if we don't have enough problems in our democracy right now. So unless we were willing to say, Biden said green and she said blue on any particular issue, we were never really going to satisfy that. So our focus was, let's look to the future. Let's describe her and her approach to things. Let's use policies, future-looking policies to demonstrate that difference. But in the end, we've all seen the data. Too many people thought that you'd be a continuation, which on the economy was, the incumbent killer.
Quentin, in the post-election analysis, there's been a ton of focus on the very ubiquitous trans ad that the Trump campaign spent tens of millions of dollars on. There have been sort of two strains of thought of this. One, the sense that her position and the Democratic Party position on trans-related issues were one of the reasons.
There's nothing funnier than talking about the economy being the incumbent killer when, Mexico is right there, dude. Mexico is literally right there. AMLO was an old, doddering man, but he was very well liked. Part of the reason why he was very well liked, aside from his daily fucking live stream broadcast that completely defeated any kind of stranglehold that corporate-backed mainstream media in Mexico could have, was the welfare expansion policies that he implemented. AMLO, as the doddering old man who believes in fucking duendes, wood elves, was able to successfully transition power from his hands into Claudia Sheinbaum. Not just a woman, not just any woman, but he presented her as his successor, but a Jewish woman in a country that's 98% Catholic. How the fuck did that happen? I guess maybe the wood elves are real and they made it happen. It's right there. You can just point directly to what is going on as a successful strategy. Now, it would be very funny if someone were to say, Mexico is simply more woke than the United States of America, right? Between the U.S. and Mexico, I mean, they are more woke on women's rights, at least when it comes to abortion, unconditionally offering support for abortion. There are places in America that are worse than Mexico now on abortion. That part is real. Having said that, however, it has some of the highest fucking rates of femicide on the planet. What are we talking about? Perhaps there was some other reasons.
That's why we lost, but also real questions about why the campaign decided not to respond to the ad specifically. My understanding from reporting, at least, is that you guys tested a bunch of responses and they didn't work. Just tell me your thinking there and what role you think that ad and those issues actually played in the race.
Yeah, I mean, I think, it's important to put everything into context. We've very well established the time frame. And it's honestly a lot shorter than 107 days, but we had three core objectives to the paid media. It was to define the vice president. It was to defend her on incoming attacks, and a lot of these attacks have been baked in for the past 3.5 years. While she was the vice president, they were attacking her. She was at negative 20-something on immigration. We got that down to negative 10. Trump had a positive 22-point advantage on the economy. We got that down to 7. And we had to respond to those things. And when you sort of looked at the core issues, aside from the attacks, trans issues are just at the bottom for voters. The economy, inflation, crime, immigration are the top issues. They were also some of the issues that she was getting attacked on. And to the element of sort of defining her and doing it in a way that sort of fit within what you're trying to do, there's a direct approach that you can take to anything, and then there is an approach that you can take that accomplishes 2 of the 3 objectives. A lot of the stuff that we did, such as talking about her prosecutorial background, and then saying that she went after transnational gangs, cartels, it was to push back pseudoli on the immigration attacks that were coming at her, as well as credentialing her background on things that were absent and standalone of the.
Yeah, that shit really did numbers, man. You guys banged on that. Everybody loved when she kept saying she prosecuted transnational gangs.
We did a lot of stuff about her record as AG, her record as a prosecutor, not as vice president, because it also allowed her to stand alone separate from the Biden administration. On the trans attack, obviously it was a very effective ad at the end. I ultimately don't believe that it was about the issue of trans. I think that it made her seem out of touch. And it was sort of a pseudo-economic ad underneath it, because he was saying you're going to pay for it with taxpayer money. And it was in her own words. And that's something. But we tested a ton of responses to this, direct responses. And none of them ever tested as well as basically her, talking about what she would do, to Jen's point, the future, the type of president that she would be. There were elements of it where we did try to say, and we put ads on television.
Dude, the only reason why that kind of shit is even remotely effective when it's not Like in the same breath, this dude literally openly admitted that trans issues are the bottom of people's priorities. That means they are also the bottom of transphobes' priorities as well. They don't give a fuck. Okay? Which means all of this is a distraction. And it's only an effective distraction if you don't have any campaign messaging that the Republicans are more focused on dismantling. That's it. You are in support of Medicare for all. And then watch the Republicans try to land attacks against that. Be like, it's socialism. We focus tested it. There were no answers. It's like, yeah, because you're not fucking offering adequate answers to the they care about they, them, not you ad, which people still think is a fucking banger ad. It's so stupid. It only worked on the Democratic Party staffers and I guess the consulting class and those who are over at CNN and shit. That was not a good ad at all. Nobody gives a fuck about trans people. The most effective counter to that is to go, really? You think trans people are the reason why your egg prices are so high, you fucking idiot? That's all you got to say. I didn't realize all landlords in America were trans, okay? I didn't realize that, like, your boss, every boss in America is trans. Every corporate executive is trans or an undocumented migrant. Problem is, they love the corporate executives. They love the bosses and they love the landlords. So they can't fucking say anything about them. It's so dumb. You should have just said, this hyperfixation on trans people is weird as fuck. They're your neighbors. Nobody cares about this. They are not the reason why your rent is going up. They're not the reason why the price of a carton of milk is so goddamn high. But they didn't do that. And also, that alone doesn't work unless... That messaging alone doesn't work unless you also have like positive policies that you can point to that directly respond to people's material circumstances. That deflection is successful as long as you also have other policies. That deflection wouldn't even matter. You wouldn't even need to do that deflection if the Republicans were too busy running against the positions that you are pointing to, that you are going to do. Like they did with the price gouging shit, which was a demonstrable failure for the Republicans. And yet they stopped hammering that point. Kamala Harris could have gone up there and been like, dude, look, listen. Tens of millions of Americans turned around and were like, oh, we're going to deport 20 million people. As long as it lowers the price of eggs, I'm in. Okay? Some people didn't believe it. Some people believed it. Some people were hateful about it, and they definitely wanted it, and they voted for it. But most people were just like, it's the price of eggs. It's the price of bread. It's the price of milk. It's the price of my treats. Wages and wage growth did not outpace inflation. That's it. That's simply it. That's the point. That's the only point that matters. And Republicans were like, yeah, we're gonna lower the price of all of the goods by deporting 20 million migrants. And they were like, okay, I'm on board. Kamala Harris on the other side could have literally turned around and been like, oh, you want the price of eggs lowered? I'm jailing the Walton family. Which message would resonate better with voters? I'm not saying she should do this. I'm not even saying that would actually lower the price of eggs. It would probably lower the price of a lot of shit. But my point is, Americans didn't give a fuck at that point. Okay? They didn't give a shit about what Kamala Harris was going to do in an effort to lower the price of eggs. Okay? Yeah, Mexico also recently just renewed price control measures as well. As of November 11th. Claudia Sheinbaum said on Monday that she would renew an agreement with food producers and retailers to keep the price set of basic groceries affordable for consumers. The measure had been rolled out by her predecessor, former President Andrés Manuel López Obrador, in 2022, as inflation was as high as it has been in 2 decades. We want prices to come down for consumers, especially for those who don't have much. Sheinbaum, who took office at the beginning of October, said in her morning press conference. The new accord will be signed on Wednesday or Thursday. López Obrador, Sheinbaum's mentor, launched the price controls in collaboration with the private sector on a set of groceries, including corn tortillas, rice, soap, tomatoes, and toilet paper. Lo and behold, especially the working poor in Mexico fucking treat him like a goddamn deity, dude. They love him. I know that there's a lot of resistance libs and shit like that in Mexico, but you know, the numbers on the boards. Look at his fucking approval rating. Look at her approval rating. Look at the numbers that she won by. People do not forget. There are fucking people who voted for Trump because they thought that they would get stimmy checks, okay? People don't forget the last time that the government actually did something right by them. I don't think you guys understand. Yeah, her approval rating is 74% right now. AMLO peak was 84%. Another example of this is fucking China. People always get mad, but like Harvard studied the Chinese attitudes towards the government. And we're shocked by the results. Like, these guys are not in the pocket of China. They're not invested in making a pro-China a pro-China fucking message at all. Chinese government approval ratings are consistently 90 plus. And it makes sense when you think about it. If you in your lifetime saw a relatively like an agrarian society go from that to having like tier 1 cities pop up left and right with like 20 million plus people, you're going to be like, this is the greatest. I love this. Oh my God, we've become a dominant force on the planet. Why the fuck wouldn't you be happy in that situation? Of course you would. It's like not that difficult of a concept to grasp unless you're a fucking dumbass American and you forgot what democracy is supposed to be about. Now, I'm not even saying that about China in general. I'm just simply saying that governance, good governance, and democracy is supposed to be about offering things to your constituents. Okay? The greatest example I can also point to that you're seeing cycle after cycle is the black vote. Why is it that the black voting bloc has consistently been more pro-Democrat the older they get, more liberal the older they get? Their voting patterns show that the black voting bloc is significantly more pro-Democratic Party the older they get. It's because they remember the last fucking time the Democrats actually expended political capital for them. That's it. And the further you move away from the Civil Rights Act, like the further you move away from that time, generationally speaking, the more people move away from the party. I think it's the same with queer people still being so in the pocket. We still remember 2014. Yeah. But that's like impossible to contend with for a lot of people. Americans are so cynical about the way they analyze politics that they literally think it's actually bad when a politician, quote unquote, buys votes. That's called politics, man. That's called doing right by your constituents. What do you mean fucking buying votes? I've said this for years. It's like we are so lost in the sauce, so overcome with the expectation that politicians are never supposed to do right by you, that when they actually are entertaining the notion of offering you something, people think, oh, it's cynical. They just want to buy votes. Oh, you mean be a democracy? That's what you mean. I can't believe that they're not simply in the pocket of corporations and their interests. There's something wrong here. It's like, yeah, there is. There's a lot wrong here. Let me tell you. Holy moly.
Of her saying, you've seen all the negative attacks against me, and try to bottle it up, because I also think you have to think about the entire sentiment when you're running a paid campaign. And the trans ad, I think because of the content, a lot of people felt like it was much bigger than what it was. But to put that into context, Team Red, meaning Trump and all the super PACs that were spending on Trump's behalf, that was 7% of their total ads was on that issue.
Was that specific? I think it was 2 ads, right?
Yeah.
There was the original, and then there was the one with Charlemagne. Yep.
And it was all Trump. So Trump spent, 37% of his, 200 million on that ad, but Trump wasn't the only spender. We were getting hit across the board. And so you have to take into account what all the super PACs are doing and play off of that. And I think that's what Trump was doing. His super PACs were hitting us on the economy, immigration, and crime. And Trump even started hitting us on immigration. And I think the veracity of which we came out of the gate and responded to that, they weren't expecting that from us. And then they backed off of that. And at that point, they started going into it. And so it is easy to say with the kind of resources that we raised, we should have been able to do everything. But that's not the case. You have to make decisions in the time frame that we were in this.
Dollars that you raised in like a week. What part of this analysis is Liz Cheney? Where does she come in? I can't watch the rest of this, man. I can't even entertain this shit. It's so ass. Let's get to some real thinkers. Okay? That's right. It's time to be fucking value-tained.
Prime Minister Netanyahu faces potential arrest in UK following an international criminal court ICC warrant for alleged war crimes in Gaza, which
trans is weird. Democrats like myself are sick of it. The money spent to get the trans vote is actually hurting a majority of their base. Can you explain to me what dollars were spent to get the trans vote? Can you explain to me any like even remotely pro-trans message that took place from the campaign this time around? There was not a singular trans person that spoke at the DNC. The one time that Kamala Harris was directly asked about the trans question, she said, "We're going to follow the law." What happened there? Are you fantasizing about a future that didn't happen, or are you fantasizing about a past that didn't exist? How am I supposed to deal with you? I think you're weird. Talking about how trans people are weird. You're weird, motherfucker. You're hallucinating. You got trans on the mind. Something broke.
Which also includes former Defense Minister Yoav Gallant. Downing Street has confirmed the UK will uphold its legal obligations under ICC Act 2001, which mandates compliance with such warrants, while the government refrained from commenting on specific causes. A spokesperson emphasized that Netanyahu would not receive special treatment if he were to visit UK. The ICC actions have sparked political debate, which we'll talk about here in a minute. And at the same time, you got, what's his name, comes out. Justin Trudeau comes out, page 9 it is, and he says the following. Let me see, does it say?
These guys are so funny because like there's a lot of discontent in their audience towards Israel, but they still have to like try and frame it in a way where Israel is still the good guys. So he's just going to fucking point to like Justin Trudeau and libs to be like, oh, you know, this guy is just like Donald Trump, Netanyahu. He's just like Donald Trump, but of Israel. And also, Justin Trudeau, we know he's a bitch and he wants to arrest Netanyahu. That's why you should like Netanyahu. Not going to work.
It says page 9 here, but I don't have it. Where is page 9, Rob? It says Justin Trudeau. Canada's Trudeau. Do you see that story? I don't have it here. Is it on 10?
Right here.
Okay.
9.
Canada's Trudeau says he would arrest Netanyahu on ICC orders. He stated on Thursday that Canada would enforce the ICC warrant for Prime Minister Netanyahu, emphasizing we stand up for international law and we will abide by all the regulations and ruling of the international courts. This is just who we are as Canadians. Trudeau highlighted broader goals amid the Gaza conflict, such as aid flowing in, the release of hostages, and return to two-state solution, condemning Hamas while urging for a ceasefire to protect civilians. He acknowledged the domestic challenges for Canadian communities impacted by the conflict, stating, we have to remember who we are, be there for each other, pushing for peace and stability as hard as we can. Tom.
This whole thing is borderline ridiculous. You've got two countries that are basically at war, one against its will, right? Israel's been dragged into a war, you know, and it is a war. It's not just a border skirmish and a battle, it's a war. And they have been dragged into it. And now you're going to say,
yeah, those babies shouldn't have been sleeping in their cribs if they didn't want to get fucking murdered by Israel. Israel saw brown children existing and was like, we have to kill them. What is this? Public school systems are littered with this initiative. I have 2 kids in elementary school that have to deal with this. I'm not hallucinating. Hopefully you understand what is pushing Democrats away from the party. I voted for Kamala. I'm just telling you what's happening. Public school systems are littered with this initiative. What are you talking about, dude? This dumb fuck saw like a Facebook meme. That's how stupid we are, by the way. As a society, the level of stupidity is basically, I saw a Facebook meme. What do you mean? Like public schools are littered with this? Like what? You mean like a trans teacher? You saw like a trans person who happens to be a teacher? Like what are we talking about?
all of the leaders that are doing things that are horrible, and the people from Hamas and Hezbollah and Iranian leaders that are responsible for things, funding them, encouraging them.
Oh, I see you've been stealing your homework from Ben Stein. What? Oh.
And doing all this. The one guy that you say, we're going to pull him over for speeding because, you know, he's done some things and these are...
There's no way ICC should arrest you guys for charging $99 for a garbage hat. So the ICC is wrong because if we hold Netanyahu accountable, then we have to hold the U.S. president accountable. They forgot to add paid for by AIPAC in this video. Come on. See, I fucking told you. Independent thinkers, okay, that go to Patrick Bet David don't want to hear him fucking rehash like Republican Party positions. They want him to talk about the truth. Okay? Did he just call Lindsey Graham a voice of reason? This man is surely out of his mind. Tom and Adam also should be arrested for their hypocrisy. Really? So genocide is now accepted. Please update your info on this. Unacceptable. I forgot that this channel is super pro-Israel and everything. He is not targeted by the ICC. He's being held accountable. There's a huge difference. Netanyahu was more like Dick Cheney of Israel. No one should kiss the ring. This is an eye-opening segment. Makes me question the perspective of these guys. I'm telling you right now, man, for a lot of people, this is like completely unacceptable. It's not that impressive. I called it out before the fucking video started, chat. Why do you think I knew that that was going to be the comment section? Because no matter where you find yourself on the political spectrum, those are all Trump voters, by the way. Like, no matter where you find yourself on the political spectrum, a lot of people, especially like the I'm an independent thinker people, they see what the fuck's going on and they're like, this shit sucks. What do you mean? This kind of like rapacious, endless dick riding of Israel as it's conducting this ethnic cleansing campaign is fucking ridiculous. It's so ridiculous that it makes people frustrated. Like, people are like, what are you talking about? These are people who don't give a fuck about Muslims, by the way. There are a lot of people out there who do not give a fuck about Muslims. Like, they don't give a shit. If it was America melting Iraqi children, they're like on board. But they see what the fuck Israel's doing and they're like, okay, dude, like, what is this? Why are we giving like billions of dollars to these guys? And they're so fucking arrogant in the process. They come in to the United States of America. They speak in front of Congress. Congress fucking claps like seals. They do a standing ovation to this guy who is now has an arrest warrant for being a fucking war criminal by the ICC. Like, most normal people see that and go, what the fuck is happening? And I'll take it one step further. Beyond that, beyond the fact that most normal people see that, considering that there's already a lot of nascent, unexamined anti-Semitic tendencies amongst the American population and the Western world in general, they go, oh shit, maybe Jews do control the fucking media and the government. That's literally how they think. It's not an accident that there's so many chatters are like, yeah, dude, I don't know what the fuck to do. There's like so many people in my like immediate friend group have, I feel like, started pointing to like incredibly fucking anti-Semitic takes and shit. That's what's going on. That's what the fuck is happening. And people, it's just crazy because it's like, people don't see the negative consequences, or even if they do, they're too nearsighted. Okay? They are so fucking short-sighted to not recognize that this endless defense of Israel is just genuinely making people go, yeah, I'm anti-Semitic. Who gives a fuck? Fuck you. Okay? And when you also dilute the severity of the term anti-Semitism, anti-Semite, to like even point to people like myself who are obviously anti-Israel, not anti-Semitic at all. As a matter of fact, I criticize Israel because it fucking constantly claims it is doing this shit for Jews. What the fuck do you think people are going to think? You might think in the long term, like, Israel will win this and it doesn't matter. And, you know, you just got to keep rehashing the same old dynamic over and over again. Like, oh, all criticizers of Israel are anti-Semitic. Why do you hyper focus on Israel? What about all these other war crimes? It's like, bitch, what the fuck are you talking about? We're giving billions of dollars, dude. Like, it's not a good deflection anymore. It's like fucking, it is literally like promoting ISIS and being like, ISIS is the most significant Islamic movement. And like, if you criticize ISIS for their acts of terror, you're a fucking Islamophobe. That's what it sounds like.
These are war crimes. Some civilians have died. These are war crimes. The one guy the ICC wants to pull over is Netanyahu. Shouldn't there be a long list of other people from Iran and Syria and some other locations? Really?
Yeah, dude. Yeah, countries that have been sanctioned into oblivion. Perhaps there's a difference between fucking Israel doing this with American weapons and like countries that are already outside of the sphere of American influence.
Really? The one guy you want to pull over? And then the UK says, we'll back it up, but you got to remember who's speaking and who the UK is. If you've been to London, you know why they call it right now Londonistan. You know why they call it that. That's not a bad nickname. That's what's going on.
Yeah. That's why the UK said, like, we would unwittingly abide by the Rome Statute, which we're a party to. Because bro, they literally had a fucking pogrom. Not an anti-Jewish pogrom, like an anti-Islam pogrom. An anti-immigrant pogrom recently. like a week after the fucking Tories lost. The fuck do you mean? Like a real one, not like the Amsterdam one. Jump on PBD and set the record straight, homie. I should. Patrick Bet-David is so, I mean, he's a little bit cowardly. I think he's letting this guy do it. This guy's like a crazy Christian fundamentalist, if I'm not mistaken. He's right about Iran, though. I just don't think it's the right policy window. Dude, what the fuck could the ICC do about Iran? You think the Ayatollah is going to fucking Europe? Iran as a nation state has been sanctioned into oblivion, dog. What do you mean? PBD is a part of the Persian diaspora who will die on this hill. That's the thing, right? It won't work, or else it theoretically is right. Yeah, like sanctioning Iran or saying that like the Ayatollah is a fucking war criminal is not like, it's not gonna do anything. You know what I mean? They already are. They've already gotten hit with the fucking greatest fatwa of all time, okay? American sanctions. He's not wrong about Iran, though. PBD is a part of the Persian diaspora who will die on the hill on making sure the fascist Islamist regime in Iran gets wiped out, and Israel to them is their best chance of getting their country back. Yeah, I mean, he's also a Shah writer. That is the Iranian diaspora part that is like, I'm Persian, not Iranian, and they like the Shah. Anyway, but regardless, there's nothing. It's like, dude, it's the same principle behind like fucking giving Putin the war criminal declaration, which actually is more meaningful because that does actually stop him from traveling to like BRICS nations or whatever. Like he couldn't go to South Africa, he couldn't go to Brazil. So that is more significant. The Ayatollah is not going to Brazil. You know what I mean? Like the Ayatollah's not traveling outside of the country, you know? So you're not even like limiting his travel. The Ayatollah goes to Brazil is funny. Yeah, it's a good movie.
On and the political climate, just like Minneapolis, just like we have with Omar and our own government, this is the things they say. And so you're not hearing the core of the UK. You're not hearing sensible, Western leaders saying, hang on a second, there's a war going on and there's people, should be a whole group of people that's pulled over for speeding here.
I think it's pretty funny that like the only defenses people have against this metric ton of evil is to just hit the Islamophobia button and be like, you don't understand. All the naysayers are like disgusting Muslims, okay? They're bad guys. But because Israel's actions are so uniquely awful, that even Islamophobic people are like, come on, dog. Yeah, I hate Muslims too, but like, Israel's kind of gotten a little out of hand, don't you think? Yeah. For so many people that want to defend Israel, like the most, the number one defense always is like, well, have you considered that Israel's killing Muslims and that's good? And at this point, it's like, it doesn't even matter. For most people, it's just like, dude, I just want to fix the fucking potholes. Like, why are we giving trillions? Another 20 billion to Israel, please, is not a policy prescription that anyone is on board with, okay? They don't even want to give Ukraine weapons. And at least Ukraine is defending itself, man. Like, Americans are like, why the fuck are we giving Ukraine weapons? And Ukrainians are like fucking dying. Okay? And that's not mostly because they're pro-Russia, with the exception of like a couple dumbasses in a Telegram group that like got duped into thinking that, Russia is anti-trans and that's why, I like Russia or some shit. Okay? With that exception, it's like, for most people, it's like, why the fuck are we giving Ukraine so much money? That's what Americans think, okay? So, for a lot of Americans who don't even want to give fucking Ukraine money or weapons when they are defending themselves against a nation state that America has historically considered the enemy from the USSR times all the way to now, why the fuck do you think they would be fine? With the exception of the right-wing, rabid, evangelical Christian weirdos, most Americans look at this and go, why the fuck are we giving so much money? Why are we giving so much money to Israel? This doesn't make sense.
Look at this. And then you've got Trudeau. Don't look at Trudeau as a Western Canadian. He's a socialist Marxist that was elected by his last name and is doing his best to ensure he's unelected at the first opportunity, which will happen. That's what's going on here. It's ridiculous. This is the liberal side of media that's pulling these things.
Dude, Israel dick riders are so funny.
This is
Adam,
really
thoughts?
ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, just a quick list of. Do you understand how the ICC works? So, there's the United Nations Security Council. I think there's 5 permanent members on the UN Security Council. So there's 3 that are kind of on our team, and there are 2 on the other team. So you have the US, you have the UK, and you have France. And then number 4 and 5 are China and Russia. And at any point, anyone can veto or suggest that someone goes to the criminal court of the ICC.
Well, seems to me like 2 members of the fucking UN Security Council that are supposed to be on our team are now saying that they will follow through on the arrest of Benjamin Netanyahu. Will this cause me to reflect and reconsider my position? No, it won't. Also, the ICC, it doesn't matter what the UN is in terms of the ICC. It's a separate institution.
The International Criminal Court. So here's who's been recommended to go to the criminal court, but it's been blocked by China and Russia. Do you remember what Bashar al-Assad did to his people in Syria? Hundreds of thousands, if not over 1 million people dead in a Syrian civil war. This good-looking gentleman right here, Bashar al-Assad, 1 million people dead. No arrest, no nothing.
And he probably used biochemical.
What's the argument? He gets to do it so we can do it too? Like, I don't understand. Also, it's not even a we. You live in Miami, dog. What the fuck? At least one of them is Jewish. So he actually fucking got propaganda from, an early age. The other guy is the rabid Christian evangelical.
Well, he did. Okay. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, what they're doing to basically subjugate their people. The thug-like regime in Iran, no ramifications.
What about Erdogan? Yeah, he'll say that too in a second. Erdogan just shut off water access to 1 million Kurds in northern Syria. He's going to say that. Yeah, guess what, dude? You want to know why he gets to do that? Because he's fucking NATO. That's it. Okay? That's it. If you are in America's orbit and you are a part of the American imperial apparatus, they will let you do that shit. What? The FBI posted its file on Black Lives Matter today. It's small, only 77 pages and mostly news clippings. But it looks like at some point during 2017, they were monitoring protesters showing up to Ben Shapiro lectures. That's amazing. I'm so glad that the federal agencies are working round the clock to, make sure that these real criminals are prosecuted and apprehended. Fuck, man. God, this country is so ass, dude. It's so fucking ass. It is so goddamn ass. In the past, I have had my dealings, and it's so funny when they're like, we're very well aware of who you are. That's what they said to me back in the day. Ben with the UCLA and 100 cops came with him recently. Yeah, I saw that. Why does all the phase of chat hates you? Jason, not as much, but Ron was looking at Complex Best Streamers and spammed L's when he came up. They're kids because they're 12. Yeah. There are a lot of them are kids. They don't really think about any of this stuff. They think I'm like, I haven't really interacted with Ron and Lacey's communities as much. That's probably what it is. Some of them are like former XQC fans and shit. Yeah, they think I'm a boomer. Do you get some satisfaction in knowing an FBI agent has to enjoy your thirst traps? Also, a lot of Aiden Ross crossover. Actually, I forgot. That's the major role. I can't watch the rest of this. This shit sucks. All right, let's get to the fucking tariffs, dude.
President-elect Trump, he is blasting Mexico and Canada over their handling of the border and promising to punish them with high tariffs on day one of his administration. He's also vowing to raise tariffs on China. Our senior White House correspondent, Selena Wang, is at Mar-a-Lago with the latest. Good morning, Selena.
Good morning, Michael. President-elect Trump is threatening.
Do you think your FBI agent is your fan? You would be shocked with the places in which there are HasanAbi heads. Every day, someone reaches out and tells me something that I truly find to be insane. Okay? It is some real, I'm not even kidding. This is some real Tyler Durden Fight Club shit. It is wild. I'm talking like Department of Homeland Security. How the fuck did that happen? I'm talking, I mean, look at the yeah, someone said, I know a Department of Homeland Security guy who loves you. Yeah. There are people there are obviously people that were prominently inside of the DNC that we found out. I was shocked by that. I think post DNC, I'm no longer shocked as much. But sometimes someone will tell me something and I'm like, that's insane. Like a person that I shit on quite frequently that, you know, I don't want to reveal anything, but there are a lot of people who I regularly shit on, and their staffers or people that work under them are, you know, constantly watching me.
To impose tariffs on America's top 3 trading partners. This would massively disrupt businesses and supply chains. It could also dramatically increase the costs of everything from cars, clothes to oil.
Kamala is a HasanAbi head? No, but I mean, Kamala's campaign was, yeah. They were the ones who wanted me to go to the DNC against the DNC's wishes. Let me tell you, it wasn't fucking Jamie Harrison's side of the DNC that wanted me there.
This morning, Donald Trump is warning America's neighbors, threatening to implement 25% of...
I got my whole team at NASA to love you. Get my brother a job, please. I want him to work there, you know, before they fucking wipe it out entirely. NASA doesn't pay much. Brother, what the fuck do you mean? You think Marat gives a fuck about the money? Are you kidding me? First of all, let me tell you something, okay? Aerospace engineers don't make as much as you think they would be making. I promise you. It is actually shocking how bad that shit is. And there are plenty of people who probably work in the defense sector and also is specifically as like aerospace and mechanical engineers in this chat that will tell you, yes. Like shit that you would assume is like $300K. Like you'd probably be like, oh yeah, this is like a top of the line experienced engineer. They should be making like 300,000, you know? Like think about that. That is like one of the, like you have to get a higher degree. You have to, yeah, no, they get paid like, if they're lucky, they get paid like 100 grand mid-career. Yeah, their starting salaries, depending on where they are, they usually are relegated to low-cost facilities too. So they have to live in like some dog shit state in some dog shit fucking area because the states like have, you know, either favorable tax credits that they've given, favorable tax benefits they've given to the company, or they also have like no workers protection whatsoever, and it's very hard to unionize there. So they set up these like low cost facilities. Land is cheaper too. And then they're like, yeah, you're at a low cost facility. You're in a state that is like nobody wants to live in. So yeah, of course we're going to pay you 60 grand. Shut the fuck up as a starting salary. Yeah, see, I got 55K out of college in Arkansas with an engineering degree. Engineers, 100K is a low salary. Are you out of your mind? Brother, for someone who's like, you know, half a decade into their career, almost a decade into their career, as a fucking rocket scientist, are you stupid? What are you talking about? Like, you know how people say, it's not, watch your manners? Shut the fuck up, bitch. What do you mean, watch your manners? Oh, fuck? God damn. Where the fuck do you think you're at? Anyway, you know how people say, it's not rocket science? The reason why people say that is because rocket science is hard. Okay? And the expectation from normal people is that, you know, when someone is doing rocket science, that they're probably going to be paid a lot more than the average person. Anyway.
Across the board tariffs on...
Let's get to fucking tariffs, dude. I'm done talking about this shit.
To the latest on President-elect Trump. He is blasting Mexico and Canada over their handling of the border and promising to punish them with high tariffs on day one of his administration. He's also vowing to raise tariffs on China. Our senior White House correspondent, Selena Wang, is at Mar-a-Lago with the latest. Good morning, Selena.
Good morning, Michael. President-elect Trump is threatening to impose tariffs on America's top 3 trading partners. This would massively disrupt businesses and supply chains. It could also dramatically increase the costs of everything from cars, clothes to oil. This morning, Donald Trump is warning America's neighbors, threatening to implement 25% across-the-board tariffs on Mexico and Canada on day one if both countries, he says, don't crack down on their borders with the U.S.
Trump cites a new caravan coming from Mexico with a group of hundreds of migrants, mostly from South and Central America, leaving southern Mexico last week. This Ecuadorian migrant says, "We want to be on the other side before the new president of the United States takes office, as he seems quite harsh on immigrants." The president-elect blames Mexico and Canada, saying his tariffs will remain in effect until such times as drugs, in particular fentanyl, and all illegal aliens stop this invasion of our country. Mexico in particular is America's largest trading partner, with the U.S. buying near $500 billion of Mexican goods.
I love this story so much because it is JD Pond Don, baby. It's called JD Don. JD Pond, permanent first world genocide. Okay, he's bringing it in. He's saying no more treats for you Amerifats. Every Ameroid, billions must be removed from the treacherous nature of treats. Okay, it's true. Is JD Pond Don? Is JD Pond Don? Okay, he's saying permanent first world genocide. He's saying it's over. It's done. No more fucking treats. And I respect him for it, okay? No more treats for you, Amerifat. The directorate is clear. The dictatorship of the proletariat will rise. No more treats. Americans must suffer. You like Cheez-Its? You're going to fucking die, okay? No more Cheez-Its.
Goods like computers, cars, and electrical equipment. Tariffs could greatly impact U.S. industries, with some experts warning that Americans could face higher prices on gas, cars, and food, just as inflation has been.
He said it's done. Okay. He said Americans are no longer going to get treats. I don't want them to get treats. And also on top of that, that the most important industry for Trump supporters is what? Drop shipping and Trump merchandise. He wants to gut this industry, okay? He wants to destroy these two key sectors. He despises his fan base, okay? He's saying, "Oh, I'm sorry. Do you have a Trump store? It's over. I'm going to explode it." He said, no more drop shipping and no more Trump merchandise.
Receding. Mexican authorities have broken up past caravans, with many more disbanding on their own. But Trump's incoming.
Oh yeah, by the way, this is the other thing I called. A lot of people were wondering, like, Hasan, why the fuck is Trump doing this trade tariff shit? And I told you it's gonna be to win favors. That's it. It's that, and also to maybe in the future gut what remains of the income tax.
Border czar Tom Homan is now warning those migrants they will soon face harsher policies like family separation.
We got to enforce immigration law, or we're never going to fix the border, and it leads to a big national security vulnerability to this nation.
Later today, Homan will meet with Texas's Republican Governor Greg Abbott as he prepares for his sweeping crackdown. If enacted, these tariffs could violate the terms of the trade agreement between the U.S., Mexico, and Canada.
That he signed, by the way. He did NAFTA too, and then now is saying, fuck that.
Canada, which Trump signed into law during his first term. Trump also accused China of sending drugs pouring into our country, threatening an additional 10% tariff on all Chinese products too. Tariffs are a favorite tool of Trump's.
To me, the most beautiful word in the dictionary is tariff, and it's my favorite word.
Trump's comments drawing responses from trade partners. The Chinese embassy saying economic and trade cooperation is essentially mutually beneficial. No one will win in a trade war or a tariff war. And Canada responding, saying they'll continue to discuss these issues with the incoming administration.
Trump used tariffs as a negotiating tactic during his first term, so he's reusing that playbook again. But if he actually follows through on his campaign vow for higher tariffs, some economists estimate that could cost the average U.S. household more than $2,600 a year. George?
It could really drive inflation. Okay, Selena, thanks very much.
CNN's Rosa Flores is in Houston for us now. Rosa, how is Mexico responding to what we're hearing from the incoming Trump administration about how they plan to crack down on the border and carry out these mass deportations?
fact, Mexico's president held a press conference this morning in response to President-elect Donald Trump's threat to impose tariffs on Mexico, actually. But Jim, as you know, all of these things are intermingled. Mexico's president was very firm. She called out President-elect Donald Trump, saying that both Mexico and the United States collaborate on a lot of different levels, including economically. And in other words, she said that she's ready to respond in kind. Let me read to you a portion of that letter that she sent to President-elect Donald Trump. She said, quote, "President Trump, neither threats nor tariffs will solve the issue of migration or drug consumption in the United States." I'm going to read that one more time because these are very important words from Mexico's president. "Imposing one tariff would mean another comes in response, continuing like this until we put shared companies at risk." Now, the tone of this letter is very important because Mexico's president is not just talking about
my goat, Claudia. My goat, Claudia. Conservative Reddit claims this is a Trump negotiation tactic that is in the Art of the Deal book, and that he's hitting with the highest possible deal for them to squirm and take action, and he will lower the tariffs once they do. Who's gonna take action? Tariffs do not end up. Tariffs are not a cost that the Chinese government has to pay, and there are certain raw materials, for example, that companies need. There is a lot of shit that is not either refined here, or there's a lot of shit that isn't just here. So, like, what are you going to do? You can't materialize things that don't exist within the boundaries of the United States of America. If the streamlined process for a lot of these raw materials are already within the supply chain coming from these countries that you're hitting them with tariffs, and we have no competitive manufacturing industry, tomatoes, avocados, things like that, bananas, you know what I mean? With bananas, there's not really a substitute, but like tomatoes and avocados, you can make it here, right? You do make it here, right? You grow them here, but not by the numbers necessary. So what are you supposed to do? What are you supposed to do? We get it from Mexico. What are you supposed to do? Trump is doing degrowth, dude. That's what he's doing. Like, people are still, what's going to end up happening is people are still going to keep, importing this stuff, and then they're going to pay the tariffs, and then they're going to carry on the cost of the consumer. That's it. So the prices are going to go up because now the production costs have gone up. It's that simple. Like, people understand this when they talk about labor. Oh, when the wages go up, well, then the cost of the cost of production is going to go up. No company is going to eat the fucking profit margins, okay? They're just not going to do that. This is a way for Donald Trump to, I don't think he's going to do like full-blown tariffs. I think he's just going to tariff key sectors and then, and then use that as a mechanism to bring in more alliances from industry leaders to be like, I will tariff your business into the fucking ground unless you play ball. Companies need to be able to eat the upfront cost, though. Okay, if companies were going to eat the upfront cost, why don't they do that for fucking wage increases rather than fucking putting tariffs on random shit that then goes in the pockets of the American government so they can fucking not, fix the potholes and instead give it to Israel? The fuck? Force the companies to eat the profits, eat into their profit margins, and increase wages then.
the border relationship with the United States, because Mexico has done a lot to help the Biden administration control the migration that is coming into the U.S. southern border, which begs the question about what is happening on the U.S. southern border, given that Governor Greg Abbott and the incoming U.S. border czar, Tom Homan, are on the border today. Here's the reality. The migrant apprehension numbers are extremely low. I talked to a law enforcement source, Jim, who says that on Sunday, migrant apprehensions were about 1,500. If you compare that to December of 2023, when 10,000 people were crossing the border per day, that just gives you a sense of the dramatic change The reality is, and I've talked to both people on the ground, agents, and also advocates who work on the border, they say it is very quiet right now, very low, despite what you're hearing from Governor Greg Abbott and the incoming border czar, Tom Homan. Back to you.
All right, Rosa Flores, important context. Thank you very much.
What do Americans want in terms of what were their top priorities for Trump? This is according to CBS News YouGov poll that came out. Their highest priority is lower prices. 79% of Americans want lower prices. Just 26% say put tariffs on imports. So his strategy here can undercut what voters want him to do.
Sure, but this, threatening tariffs.
Dear President-elect Donald Trump, I'm writing to you regarding your statement on Monday, November 25th, concerning migration, fentanyl trafficking, and tariffs. You may not be aware that Mexico has developed a comprehensive policy to assist migrants from different parts of the world who would cross our territory en route to the southern border of the United States. As a result, and according to data from your country's Customs and Border Protection, encounters at the Mexico-United States borders have decreased 75% between December 2023 and November 2024. Moreover, half of those who arrive do so through a legally scheduled appointment under the United States CBP-1 program. For these reasons, migrant caravans no longer arrive at the border. Even so, it is clear that we must work together to create a new labor mobility model that is necessary for your country, as well as address the root causes that compel families to leave their homes out of necessity. If even a small percentage of what the United States allocates to war were instead dedicated to building peace and fostering development, it would address the underlying causes of human mobility. On another note, and for humanitarian reasons, Mexico has consistently expressed its willingness to help prevent the fentanyl epidemic in the United States from continuing. This is, after all, a public health consumption problem within your society. Yeah, she's saying, like, you Americans are fat fentanyl addicts, and it's not our fault. You have created the market for fentanyl. So far this year, Mexican armed forces and prosecutors have seized tons of various types of drugs, 10,000 firearms, and detained 15,000 individuals for violence related to drug trafficking. Furthermore, the Mexican Congress is in the process of approving a constitutional reform to classify the production, distribution, and commercialization of fentanyl and other synthetic drugs as a serious crime without bail. However, it is publicly known that the chemical precursors used to produce this and other synthetic drugs are illegally entering Canada, the United States, and Mexico from Asian countries. This underscores the urgent need for international collaboration. You must also be aware of the illegal trafficking of firearms into my country from the United States. Again, also correct. It's also, ironically enough, Americans that traffic the fentanyl and chemical compounds necessary for fentanyl through regular points of entry for an American market. And then Americans also trade guns for said fentanyl and chemical compounds. So the drug trade is directly vibrant as a consequence of ridiculous American policies. America is so gun crazy that they also have similar problems with Canada too. 70% of the illegal weapons seized from criminals in Mexico come from your country. We do not produce these weapons, nor do we consume synthetic drugs. Tragically, it is in our country that lives are lost to the violence resulting from meeting the drug demand in yours. Am I on CNN now? Are they finally covering my story on CNN? Let's watch. Not yet. It's out front. I just saw you on CNN. Oh, wait. I guess we missed it then. Because it's Aaron Burnett out front right now. I'm up next. Okay. Hopefully I'll be able to finish this in time. President Trump, migration and drug consumption in the United States cannot be addressed through threats or tariffs. What is needed is cooperation and mutual understanding to tackle these significant challenges. For every tariff, there will be a response in kind until we put at risk our shared enterprises. Yes, shared. For instance, among Mexico's main exporters of the United States are General Motors, Stellantis, and Ford Motor Company, which arrived in Mexico 80 years ago. Why impose a tariff that would jeopardize them? Such a measure would be unacceptable and would lead to inflation and job losses in both the United States and Mexico. I am convinced that North America's economic strength lies in maintaining our trade partnership. This allows us to remain competitive amongst other economic blocs. For this reason, I believe that the dialogue is the best path to understanding, peace, and prosperity for our nations. I hope our teams can meet soon to continue building joint resolutions. So that part is also correct. And not only is that part correct, but also one of the funniest things that happened in this process was Canada also was like, what the hell's going on? Except their response was, why the fuck would you ever say we're Mexican? To compare the U.S. to Mexico is the most insulting thing I've ever heard from Canada's closest ally. Premier Ford tells reporters at Queen's Park. Says Canada will have to retaliate if tariffs go through. We have to tighten up our borders on both sides, Ford says, adding there are illegals entering Canada from the U.S. too. This is no way to treat your closest ally, but says there's a problem at the border that needs to be addressed. Ford says Ontario is preparing a strong commercial in the U.S. that promotes Canada's relationship with the U.S., calls tariffs a shock, but says problems need to be addressed. USA, we're going to crush your economy. Canada, did you just call me a Mexican? That's amazing. Also, last but not least, okay, here's the average American and their understanding of tariffs.
Do these liberals not understand that this is the point? Like, this is the goal. Walmart CFO signals that price hikes may be coming because of Donald Trump's tariffs. Yeah, we fully expect price hikes on foreign products.
You fucking idiot. Of all trade is conducted with China, Mexico, and Canada. Okay, 45. That touches every product. Okay? That touches every fucking product, you absolute dumbass. People think, I guess no more Chinese food or whatever the fuck, but like they don't understand that there are raw materials that are necessary for American production that are being manufactured or are coming in from these countries. Lumber, for example. Oh my God.
Because we will only be applying tariffs to foreign products. Look, Aaron, I recognize you probably have no fucking idea how tariffs work. So let me tell you how this is going to happen. We're going to put tariffs on the foreign products that Walmart brings in, which will raise the cost of the foreign products and allow the American companies to compete with them to actually be able to compete on price, thereby incentivizing people to buy American, which would lead to that American company being able to lower their prices because they're finally getting volume. Therefore, what you have is foreign products, which are...
Oh, that's how it's going to work. Oh, American manufacturing is going to become cheaper. I didn't realize that that's how it was going to work. Famously, when there is a stable amount of demand, but the supply all of a sudden is wiped out in half, what ends up happening is, famously, companies actually lower their prices and not increase their prices. They only increase their prices when Joe Biden is president. Thank you. No, that's how it works.
Because they're finally getting volume. Therefore, what you have is foreign products, which are going to be significantly more expensive.
Still
and you
not
have
live on
American
CNN.
products where the company is able to lower their price because they're able to sell in volume. But yeah, if you want to continue to buy...
I think I'm up next on CNN, maybe?
That may be in the works. Let's see. That's going to blow up some heads. So, we'll see.
All right, this comes as Democrats right now are pinning their hopes tonight on this man, Hasan Piker, the left's biggest influencer. In fact, 7.5 million people tuned into his live stream on election night. 7.5 million. So who is he? And is he getting young men to swing left? Tony O'Sullivan went and talked to him, and he is out front.
Tony O'Sullivan.
This is Hasan Piker.
This is my dog, Kaya. I thought you legitimately were going to work out.
I could do some weights. He's a social media superstar with almost 3
You're on
million
TV?
followers on the video streaming platform Twitch.
They're eating the pets.
So this is that whole masculinity thing people are talking about, huh? And he's part of a growing group of streamers and podcasters reaching young men online, a space Trump tapped into to reach young male voters.
Punch in, then you won't be able to see that he's not doing any weights.
But Hasan is not a Trump supporter. He's a progressive, a fan of Bernie and AOC. The Democratic Party even invited him to the DNC in August.
One thing we've been hearing for weeks now is that the left needs a Joe Rogan.
Yeah. I don't think that the Democratic Party can podcast itself out of this issue. Joe Rogan, he endorsed Bernie Sanders in 2020. Maybe they should do an autopsy on why he left the party.
Yeah, I've heard you say when it comes to stuff that guys like, you seek that stuff out online, whether it's watching a streamer, whether it's watching guys talking about working out and fitness. You say that the right wing just dominates.
Look how
that
tall
space.
she is.
Yeah.
Why?
On TV. Well, I think that's why I started on Twitch, right? I know for a fact that the video game space
is like people who consume this culture, people who are a part of this culture, are not all right wing. I wanted to showcase to people that, like, no, you can be a progressive person, you can be a leftist, and like have fun at the same time.
How many people were watching your live stream on election night?
The total unique number was 7.5 million.
There's a general sense that when it comes to the world of podcasts, alternative media, I don't even know what you want to call it, that Trump did a much better job at that than Democrats and Harris.
Absolutely. I think that's true. When I saw the Aiden Ross collab, I thought, this doesn't have emotion. It was awkward, it was weird. But then I saw Trump on Theo Vaughn, and he started talking about cocaine. And I was like, uh-oh, this humanizes him.
So you're way up with cocaine more than anything else you can think of.
Cocaine will turn you into a damn owl, homie. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Harris did consider going on Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
But she didn't. What is it that the Democrat Party has to do differently?
Well, I think that they need to change their policies.
It's a policy thing.
Yes, it's 100% a policy thing. Which is the boring answer. Although it would be very self-serving for me to say, I'm the left's Joe Rogan, the Democratic Party should give me millions of dollars. That's not going to solve this problem. What will solve this problem is if the Democratic Party actually adopts real left-wing economic populist messaging instead of purposefully avoiding that stuff because they're terrified of upsetting their corporate donors. I think Trump speaks to mail insecurities better, and I think Trump speaks to the anger that people have, whereas the other side of the political spectrum does not speak to that anger at all.
There's been a lot of controversy around you.
Yes.
The way you talk about Israel is viewed by some as anti-Semitic.
Yeah.
Are you anti-Semitic?
Of course not. The real problem here is that I'm an anti-Zionist. The real problem here is that I'm extremely critical of Israel and all of the information that's readily available, especially on social media for so many people that don't necessarily rely on mainstream media any longer to get their information. And that's why you see this generational gap. If you're over the age of 35, you're still operating on the old boundaries. You're like, no, Israel's the most moral democracy in the Middle East, maybe in the world, right? Like, and I think that the major generational divide that is, I think, in a very damaging way, feeding into the mistrust overall that people have with mainstream news in general, is coming from that.
Tony O'Sullivan, CNN, Los Angeles.
Yeah, it's so thoughtful and important to hear that. Ken Martin is out front. He is running to be the next chair of the DNC. He's the current chairman of the Minnesota Democratic Farmer Labor Party. And I really appreciate your time, Ken. So, you hear Hassan Piker. 7.5 million people watched him on an election night. He's all in as a Democrat. But then he's talking to Donny about how the video game and fitness space online is dominated by right-wing people talking about it, right? Not necessarily everyone into fitness, right? That there's that gap. And he says that Trump speaks to male insecurities better. He speaks to the anger that people have, and that Democrats don't speak to that anger at all. I'm quoting Hassan here. He's very direct about the problem. Do you agree with him?
Well, first off, Aaron, thanks for having me on tonight. And actually, I think Hassan's right in most of what he says there, and particularly as it relates to the fact that the Republicans have been, since the 2020 election, a constant drumbeat of misinformation, disinformation, and lies on platforms that the Democratic Party really wasn't competing in. We live in a 24/7, 365-day information environment now that we have to be competing in a much better way. Podcasts, streaming services, TikTok, social media, of course. My two boys, 22 and 20, they get their information from TikTok, right? And so we have to start realizing that we have to be where the voters are. That's half the battle, of course.
Okay,
and
no, he's missing the point. I didn't say just be at the podcast.
Others who are already trusted validators and messengers in these spaces to help push these messages out and to have conversations with voters and people who are feeling frustrated and angry and left behind.
That's not what I said.
When we send people into these spaces, it tends to be politicians.
It's the opposite
or
of what I
talking
said.
heads. People like Hassan have deep influence and certainly have a voice and a following.
So, there has been a lot of focus, and he sort of touches on that because he's talking about
the dominance of right-wing voices in very male spaces like video games or fitness. And there has been, though, broadly speaking, Ken, so much focus right now, and as you're looking to run the DNC, this is at the center of it.
I said you're not going to podcast your way out of this problem.
Aggressively away from certain social positions like DEI, right? Or from issues where Democrats certainly seem to be in this election and certainly were successfully branded as much to the left of American voters. For example, Kamala Harris's support of taxpayer-funded surgeries, transgender surgeries for illegal migrants. The heads of the Trump and Harris campaigns see the impact of that issue, of that now famous ad, very differently.
That's crazy.
I wanted to play each of them for you.
We targeted black men, Hispanic families.
Oh my God, I'm dying.
White families, suburban women. We ran that ad everywhere because
they
it also
just
got to
they
the
did
point
not
about boys and girls locker rooms.
They're like,
which
no, we
suburban
have to
moms don't like.
we have to find a Joe Rogan to the left and give him $1 million. That's the point. That's what we got to do.
Most ruthlessly effective.
I don't know how else I can communicate this point like openly.
This trans ad was not driving vote. There's a belief that if only we had responded to this trans ad with national and huge battleground state ads, we would have won. I don't think that's true.
So, Ken, how do you see it? One of the most ruthlessly effective negative ads in all of history, or this trans ad was not driving the vote. Even if they'd responded to it more effectively, they wouldn't have won. Which point of view is right?
Well, I don't know which point of view is right. What I do know is we don't have to abandon our values here. We can stand up for the oppressed and marginalized and people who are being pushed out of this conversation, while also at the same time centering this conversation around people's economic pain and their frustrations with what was happening in this country these last several years. It's not about left or right to me. It's about making sure we focus squarely on a working class agenda that centers the struggles of this multiracial, multi-generational working class that is feeling left behind, that's working harder than they ever have before, that's struggling to get ahead and feeling like no one gives a damn about their lives. At the end of the day, that's the thing that unites all parts of our broad coalition in the Democratic Party, and we need to focus back on basics here, right? But at the same time, we do not need to abandon our values. We will stand up and protect and fight for people who are being pushed out of this conversation in this country and bullied and attacked like we see in Congress right now.
All right. Well, I really appreciate your time. Ken Martin, as I said, chairman of the Minnesota Democratic Farmer Labor Party. And I know, sir, you are running to run the DNC. And that decision for the Democratic Party is going to be crucial. So much is at stake. So thank you for your time. And you mentioned what's going on in Congress. Well, that comes down to this. The Republican Congresswoman Nancy Mace now leading the charge when it comes to attacking transgender women. But wait until you see what she used to say about the trans community. This gives About Face a whole new name. K-File has the tapes. Plus, Harry Enton with what?
Okay. CNN watches you on mute just like chat. Yeah, I mean, the recovery was better from the guy. The recovery was better. Yeah, Aaron Burnett posted me on CNN. It's crazy.
Here.
There are some Minnesotans that say they don't like Ken Martin in the chat immediately.
The Democratic Party is to focus on, again, getting back to a working class agenda that centers the struggles of everyday Americans who, to your point about inflation, were clearly worried about not getting ahead, that they were just getting by, and no one was their champion. No one seemed to care about them. The path forward here for the Democratic.
I think that was good overall. I think that the message, you know, the fact that I'm able to even say this message on CNN is a shift in the attitude, is a market shift, I think. At least they weren't outright attacking you. No, like, I think that, I don't know, dude. You've probably been asked a million times, but what's your thoughts on the DSA? It's great. You gave him a layup and still fumbled, though. Donnie O'Sullivan didn't work out. No, he did. He actually did work out. They really diluted your Israel critique. Don't know what you said, but it seemed clipped. Yeah, they cut it short for time constraints. It's not. I don't think they were like silencing me or anything like that. FM Masochist, thank you for the 50 gifted subs. The thing is, like, that interview was like an hour and a half long, but what is this? From the river to the sea is a chant used by extremists to support the destruction of Israel is appalling to embrace. Yeah, it's fine, dude. It's every Democrat is this way. They shouldn't be, but so glad they didn't clip anything out of context. No, they wouldn't do that. They like Donnie would not do that, chat. Come on. Overall, I think like talking about the trans stuff this much is so silly. I don't know. I just think it's so counterproductive. Like the media is not, liberal media in general is not as much in the tank for the Democratic Party as everyone thinks they are. They do oftentimes have a tendency to push on reactionary buttons. But having said that, I think that the Democratic Party should be messaging on the trans issue a lot better by just being like, this is a deflection, this is a distraction, this is not actually going to help. This is not actually going to help people fix the prices, you know? It's very stupid. Anyway, the primary people who will benefit from the tariffs are real estate investors, which is Trump's primary thing. So, no. The people that will benefit from Trump's tariffs regime is going to be people that are... What? Kamala Harris has a message for you?
I just have to remind you, don't you ever let anybody take your power from you. You have the same power
What the fuck is this?
that you did before, and you have the same purpose that you did.
Bro, this is a wild clip. Is she drunk? What's happening? Mamala's off the perk, dude. Goddamn.
And you have the same ability to engage and inspire. So don't ever let anybody or any circumstance take your power from you.
Democratic Party be like, we need $30 extra million right now. Here's an inspiring message from Mamala. You need to make videos like this, bro. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I think like I think tariffs are not going to be as universal as the way people think they are. And I think they're simply going to be a way for Donald Trump to win favors with key industry leaders, to just like bring them to his side. So here's the thing. This is something that Erdogan did as well. Like this is something that happens in other countries. Not so much in America, because like America is so capitalist that there's not like a need to rock the boat too much and like offer too much power to like to an administration. But like in Turkey, the incoming administration brings their own wealthy class with them. And it's a line of defense. That's what Erdogan did. He brought forth directly his family members and also people that were invested in his continued leadership, and he made them incredibly wealthy. This is a part of how kleptocracies work. Vladimir Putin did this in Russia, and Erdogan did this in Turkey. Okay, Turkey. I think that this is what Donald Trump is trying to do.
Before we get into tariffs,
not to get all libbed up on this, but like I think this is basically what Trump is going to try to do. He's going to be like, listen, you're a billionaire. You own a newspaper, right? Yeltsin did it, not Putin. Okay, I'm just saying like Putin utilized the existing structure of the oligarchs to his advantage in the same way. And I think that is what Trump is going to try and do. And it's actually a little bit unique to the regular order of business in America, because corporations run the country rather than the country runs, the government runs the corporations. And I think Trump will basically implement a tariffs regime on those he has declared enemies of his administration in an effort to centralize power even further. And you know, this is a fantastic approach to moving towards more and more authoritarian mechanisms of control.
The heart of the Donald Trump economic plan.
we should talk about the chicken war.
The chicken war is a clucking good story.
In post-World War II West Germany, people started eating a lot of chicken, specifically American chicken. Midway through 1962, U.S. farmers were on track to sell more than $50 million worth, $500 million in today's money. This made European farmers mad, so the organization that later became the European Union put a tariff on chicken. A 5-pound chicken that started as $1.60 became $2.25. Imports quickly dropped. U.S. chicken farmers and politicians were furious.
And we thought Germany's our big market for chicken, and so if we hurt the Germans, maybe we'll get them to change their mind on chicken.
So the U.S. put a 25% tariff on trucks, like Germany's Volkswagen. And it worked. Their truck sales in the U.S.
It's interesting that Wall Street Journal, a right-wing publisher, goes ahead shitting on tariffs. Brother, tariffs were the first reason why, Carl Icahn left the Trump administration last time when he implemented tariffs on steel. Carl Icahn was like, what the fuck are you doing? You're like ruining key sectors of the economy. And he did. He truly disrupted a lot of different parts of the American economy this way. So yeah, there's a reason why Wall Street Journal and damn near every economist is going to fucking be aggro on this shit. The only problem is, in this process, like I'm not even anti-tariff in general. I am simply anti-tariff when it comes to just unconditional across-the-board tariffs with no acceptable domestic manufacturing substitute. That's why you're not going to get. That's why you're not going to get liberal institutions that are still, right-wing conservative, but like pro-capitalist to be on board with tariffs in general.
Fell by half, and they never really recovered. Meanwhile, Germans paid more for their chicken, and Americans had fewer truck options.
Like one of the things that I'm incredibly annoyed by with like Toyota Hilux tariffs, for example, like the Japanese competitive car manufacturing industry, is that I hate that there is no acceptable small substitute, like small truck with the same cab size substitute in America. Then it's a lose-lose for everybody, right? Like, I understand the importance of American manufacturing. I really do, especially when it comes to vehicle manufacturing. The issue, on the other hand, is that due to CAFE standards, like all of our domestic car manufacturers have realized that, you can have these behemoth vehicles that are larger and larger, and there is no end in sight for, there's no change in that. Not to change the subject, but people are very upset for you not getting in the tub at your goal weight of 225. I don't know what you're talking about. No one is upset.
It's kind of a perfect example of what tariffs do. Hurt consumers while protecting very specific industries, or attempt to get countries to change their behavior. While they haven't been a large part of trade policy in decades, former President Donald Trump wants to change that.
Some might say it's economic nationalism. I call it common sense. I call it America first.
President Trump has really sort of brought a lot of people out to think that tariffs might be something that's useful in America's economic arsenal in a way that hasn't been used in the past.
Here's how tariffs work and what Trump's proposals would do. Let's start in 2018, when President Trump put tariffs on
washing machines. We're going to benefit our consumers, and we're going to create a lot of jobs.
Since then, whenever a washing machine is imported to the U.S., the company on the U.S. side doing the importing pays a tariff to the U.S. government.
Their margins are pretty low. They've got to pass that price on to consumers who ultimately pay it. That's the whole point, in some sense, to reduce demand for those goods and create space for domestic producers.
After the tariffs, not only did the price of imported washing machines go up, so did the ones made in the U.S.
There's this myth out there that if we...
Wait a minute, but this guy said, hold on, but this dumbass said that it wouldn't happen, that it would be cheaper. So I'm confused. Wait a minute. What? Wait a minute. What are you saying?
Tax imports, domestic producers won't change their prices. And that's not the case. You're creating more demand for them.
So naturally, the price goes up. And it wasn't just washers. Dryers went up in price too, even though they weren't part of the tariffs.
Usually it's the case, if you buy a washer, you buy a dryer. So even though dryers weren't directly affected by the tariff.
What? It seems like corporations, no matter whatever the restrictions are, will always increase prices. I'm so... Man, what?
Now, it wasn't all bad. These tariffs did
create a lot of jobs.
About 1,800, mostly from those foreign companies like Samsung and LG opening plants in the U.S. And a study found the U.S. collected $82 million annually. But because of those price increases, it cost consumers $1.5 billion more. So they basically paid $815,000 per job.
This is no, that sounds sick. Aren't you a socialist? This should be good. Oh my God, brother. There's problems here with this argument that even Wall Street Journal recognizes, and I'm shocked that you don't, which is there needs to be, one, a competitive domestic manufacturing capability, and two, a restriction on increasing prices in order to make up for the additional costs that now importers are carrying on to the consumer. If those two things don't happen, then you're fucked. Tariffs just operate as a regressive tax, a sales tax, a flat sales tax. Tariffs equals socialism. Trump isn't doing economic protectionism. So nationalization is the best thing to do. I mean, I didn't even say that, but I do believe that. Yes, I think that nationalization would be significantly better for a lot of sectors. Yes.
Very expensive.
Starting with our energy extraction industry, for sure.
Expensive job creation program. And so that's another reason why economists don't like tariffs. They're much more cost-effective, more efficient ways of increasing employment in those industries.
These weren't the only tariffs Trump created in 2018. The big ones were on
steel and aluminum.
Those were really designed to...
Costs will always be passed on. Prices will not be reduced when import competitors are figuratively eliminated from the marketplace. Why would a company offer a cheaper price when they own the market? Yeah, no, I know that. That's why I'm saying without actual price restrictions implemented by the federal government in any capacity, all this will do is raise prices regardless. Especially if you're doing broad sweeping tariffs. Like this is just one good being imported. Okay, it's one good being imported, and even then, it still has this kind of impact.
Punish China for its transgressions of international trade rules.
Also for national security. They're used to make a lot of military equipment, but also everyday things like cars.
All the industries that use steel have to pay the higher price. That squeezes their profit margins, and it also puts them at a competitive disadvantage against foreign producers of those same goods who don't have to pay those inflated costs for their inputs. And so a lot of studies have shown that you lose jobs, as many, if not more jobs, in those downstream industries as you gain in the upstream industries that are being protected by the tariffs.
Many studies on the 2018 tariffs found some pros, some cons. Manufacturing jobs, which were on the decline, didn't increase, but they did level out. The overall economy lost jobs, mostly in those downstream industries, and the costs of the tariffs were passed on to U.S. companies and consumers. So, not great for the economy, but it did motivate U.S.
I imagine you'll still live comfortably even if the prices come up. Yeah. Except it doesn't matter because I'm not a selfish fucking asshole. Do you not understand? Literally every single thing that I advocate for does not impact me. I'm not a trans person, but I advocate for trans rights. Okay? I'm not an undocumented immigrant, but I believe that we have to have a more just and equitable process for people that are migrating into the country. What the fuck? I have the capacity to not only have empathy, but beyond that, even in a self-serving manner, understand that if we actually fix some of these underlying material inequalities, then America will thrive, okay? Then America can lead, America can match its potential as the wealthiest nation on the fucking planet. That's it. That's it. That's the whole point.